Chapter 101. Hiragi Shinsuke. It's not the general who is qualified to judge you. Even if I kill you, no one will stand up for you, a fool. With the last sub-air spear piercing through, Shinsuke Hiragi, who looked like a nobody, was nailed to death on the tree. Luo Chen killed Shinsuke Hiragi and slowly flew down from the sky, and everyone was afraid of him. But Luo Chen didn't care at all. He looked around and said, "Everyone, the general and I have already issued a ban. Don't touch the evil eye. Since Shinsuke Hiragi dared to touch it, he will be severely punished. Please take Shinsuke Hiragi as a warning." "Yes, Lord Luo Chen," everyone responded quickly. "Okay, you can leave." Luo Chen nodded, and everyone left. Only Chisato Hiragi, Ing, and Paimon were left on the field. Chisato. Luo Chen looked over and saw the sadness in the girl's eyes. He sighed. It was not good to kill her father in front of his daughter, but he had to kill. Not only Shinsuke Hiragi, he would set off a bloody storm and a big purge in the whole Inazuma. He would not keep any of the names prepared by Kitsuzai Palace and Rosalind. What evidence? What trial? It's unnecessary. Anyone who is discovered will die. Ing and Paimon looked at Chisato Hiragi worriedly. They were friends after chatting just now. Now Luo Chen killed Shinsuke Hiragi in front of Chisato Hiragi. They were really afraid that Chisato Hiragi would be upset. Chisato Hiragi could no longer hold back, and tears flowed down. Although she had a very good reputation in the Kanjo Bugyo these days, and could control the Kanjo Bugyo very well, she could no longer hold back after seeing the person she admired kill her father. Chisato. Luo Chen walked forward, and Hiragi Chenli first subconsciously took a step back, then threw herself into Luo Chen's arms and burst into tears. Hiragi Chenli first pounded Luo Chen's chest with her fists frantically. Luo Chen said nothing, watching Hiragi Chenli crying in his arms and letting her vent. After venting, Hiragi Chenli hugged Luo Chen tightly again, sobbing. After a long time, Hiragi Chenli gradually stopped crying and gently looked up at Luo Chen from his arms. "Chenli, Luo Chen wanted to say something, but he didn't know how to start. At this time, Hiragi Chihaya shook his head and said, "Lord Luo Chen, I have just vented my anger. I don't blame you. Father's death is his own fault. He shouldn't have violated the prohibitions that were repeatedly issued. He deserves death for shaking the foundation of the country and disrespecting the gods. It's your mercy that he can live to this day." Hiragi Chihaya was in a complicated mood, but she still forced a smile. After all, it was her father's, even if it was for the greater good. But she still felt uncomfortable. The next moment, in the astonished eyes of Ing and Paiming, Hiragi Chihaya stood on tiptoe and kissed Luo Chen fiercely on the mouth, as if she wanted to forget everything that happened. Ing looked at the two people kissing crazily and felt so embarrassed here. She found that Paiming was actually watching the two kissing with relish and quickly covered her eyes. "Aya, what are you doing?" "Ouch." Paiming slapped Ying's hand away and put his hands on his waist. "Children can't watch these," Ing said seriously. "Paiming is not a child," Paiming retorted. After a long time, Hiragi Chihaya finally let go of Luo Chen. She stared at Luo Chen and said, "Lord Luo Chen, please forgive my rudeness. Advertisement, please give me some time to accept it, okay?" After saying this, Chihaya Hiragi broke free from Luo Chen's arms. She turned around and walked to her father's body that was no longer in human form. She picked it up with great effort and walked towards the Kanjo Bugyo. Luo Chen just watched Chihaya Hiragi carrying Shinsuke Hiragi's body into the house quietly and did not stop him. "Luo Chen, you don't go over." Paiming wanted to say something, but Ing covered his mouth. "Don't interrupt at this time. It's better to let her be quiet." Luo Chen shook his head and said. She had Luo Chen's spatial power on her body. No one could hurt her, including Chihaya Hiragi herself. "You guys came? When did you come?" Luo Chen looked at Ing and Paiming and asked curiously. "We just came." Paiming was still a little scared. Luo Chen was really cruel just now. "Well, okay." Luo Chen nodded and said, "Since you are here, I will go to Chihaya to sign a pass for you later." "Okay." Ing nodded and said, "What are your plans for coming to Inazuma?" Luo Chen asked. "We want to meet the Thunder General of Inazuma," Ing said. She had already met her brother in Liyue. The other party let her witness the scenery of the 7 countries and let her understand the meaning of the journey. "Of course, I can take you to meet the gods, but before that, I have 10 things," Luo Chen said. "Luo Chen, what are you doing?" Ing asked. "I want you to go to Heike Island," Luo Chen said lightly. "Find their current human god priestess, Her name is Coral Palace Shinhai. Directly ask him how the evil eye matter was handled, and help me investigate the current views of the people on Heike Island on the war with the shogunate. Heike Island and the shogunate are at war? Aren't you from the same country? Paimon asked in surprise. Heike Island was originally the territory of the great god of Heike, Oroba. Hundreds of years ago, Oroba invaded Inazuma and was killed by General Raiden Wuxiang on Bayan Island. Since then, General Raiden has brought Heike Island under Inazuma. Luo Chen said, although it is Inazuma's territory, they are allowed to continue to believe in Oroba. Recently, because of the Isolation Order and the Eye Hunting Order, they have formed a resistance army to fight against the shogunate. Ing and Paimon looked at each other and said in shock, could it be that the Isolation Order made them unable to survive? There is one side, but now the shogunate, the good king, has given them food supplies and a way for them to survive. Luo Chen nodded and said, so, your task is to investigate the opinions of the local people on the resistance army. I see. Ing and Paimon nodded. They had not experienced the Eye Hunting Order and were not fooled by anyone. They did not think the rebels were right. After investigating the people's wishes, you will go to the Coral Palace to ask the Evil Eye to deal with the matter. The Coral Palace's Shinhai is very smart and should understand what I mean. Luo Chen said. Okay. Since it was proposed by Luo Chen, we will try our best to complete it. Very good. When you complete this task and come back, I will take you to see the general, Luo Chen said with a smile. Chapter 102. Hee, Luo Chen, do we have any more rewards? Paimon looked at Luo Chen hopefully and said. Ing also looked at Luo Chen expectantly. Recently, she could hardly afford to keep Paimon. This little thing is too greedy. It eats nearly 10 W mora of hers in a month. If you do well, I will certainly reward you. Luo Chen looked at the two little ones in front of him and smiled. Let me think. How about 50 W mora? Great. Paimon clapped happily. Long live Lord Luo Chen. Ing also laughed happily. Luo Chen is really generous. This is 50 W mora. It is enough for them to live happily for a long time. Have you eaten? Luo Chen asked. Not yet. I've been on the ship of Big Sister Beidou. Paimon shook his head, covered his stomach and said bitterly. Luo Chen, you said that. I'm suddenly very hungry. Since you are here in Inazuma, please let me do my best to be a good host. You go to find Qianli's visa first. I'll wait for you here, and I'll treat you to a meal after the visa is signed, Luo Chen said with a smile. Great. Paimon kicked his little feet in the air and said happily to Ing, let's go quickly. That. Help me see Qianli's current condition, Luo Chen said with some concern. Okay. Ing nodded and walked into the 480th line of Candifeng with Paimon. When they arrived in front of Chitose Haragi's door, Ing knocked gently. Who? Chitose Haragi asked. It's us. Paimon said. Ing and Paimon, we are here to get your visa. Please come in. Chitose Haragi wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and said. Ing and Paimon pushed the door open and walked in. They saw that Chitose Haragi's eyes were red, and it was obvious that she had been crying for a long time. Chitose. Paimon wanted to say something, but felt that nothing he said was appropriate. It's okay. Chitose Haragi forced a smile and said, Sorry, Ing, Paimon. I made you laugh as soon as you arrived. No. Paimon waved his hand and said. Chitose Haragi nodded, and she took out a pass from the drawer, wrote the names of Ing and Paimon, and stamped it with the Kanda Fengwang seal. With this, you can live in Inazuma or go to the open area. Chitose Haragi gave the pass to Ing and said, Thank you, Chitose. Ing said. Lord Luo Chen allowed it. Chitose Haragi said, and mentioned Luo Chen, and wanted to cry again. By the way, Ing, Paimon, is Lord Luo Chen. Okay? I think he was very angry just now. Chihaya Haragi asked with some concern. He's fine. Paimon said quickly. I'm glad he's fine. Chihaya Haragi nodded and said. Then Chihaya, we won't bother you anymore. Ing and Paimon looked at each other and thought they could leave, so they quickly said to Chihaya Haragi. Okay. Chihaya Haragi didn't try to stop them, nodded and said. I wish you two have fun in Inazuma. Ing and Paimon nodded, turned around and left the Kanjo Bugyo. How is it? Seeing Ing and Paimon coming out, Chihaya Haragi asked quickly. It's okay. Chihaya is still quite stable now, Paimon said. She's still worried that you'll be angry, Ing added. Advertisement Luo Chen nodded, and he said, Let's go. I'll treat you to dinner at Wio Pavilion in Inazuma City. The three of them were all extraordinary people, and two of them arrived at Inazuma City in half a morning. Wow, is this Inazuma? Looking at Inazuma City, Paiming exclaimed, sure enough, the 7 cities have different styles. Lord Luo Chen, times in along the way, all the people who saw Luo Chen greeted Luo Chen. Recently, he has appeared a lot in Inazuma, and many people have also recognized this new god of Inazuma, although the conferred god ceremony has not yet begun. Luo Chen smiled and nodded in response. Wow, Luo Chen feels very respected in Inazuma, Paiming said to Ing. I just heard someone say that Luo Chen asked the general to end the eye hunting order. There are also rumors that the locking order is about to end. Ing nodded and said, here we are, this is Wuyo Pavilion. Luo Chen stopped and walked in with Ing and Paiming. Lord Luo Chen. The waiter saw Luo Chen coming and saluted.
Yes.
Luo Chen nodded and said, 1 box, 3 people? Okay, Lord Luo Chen, please come this way. The waiter took Luo Chen, Ing and Paiming into a large box. This is the most luxurious box, reserved for big shots. Wow, so beautiful. Paiming looked at the box. It was magnificent and comparable to Xinyuexuan. The countless gold and silver jewels made Paiming, a little money grubber, drool. What do you want to eat? Luo Chen asked after the 3 sat down. It's all right. This is our first time at Inazuma. You can decide. Xing said. Her voice was very gentle and pleasant. It's a pity that Ing Mei is like a mute, very cold, and usually doesn't talk much. Ing, you have a nice voice. Don't be so cold, talk more. Luo Chen said while flipping through the menu. We have known each other for quite a while, and I have never heard you say that you don't talk much. Yes.
Yes.
Paiming nodded in agreement. Ing doesn't like to talk, and she has to rely on me a lot of times. Hearing Luo Chen's words, Ing blushed slightly and nodded. It was the first time someone praised her beautiful voice, and then glared at Paiming. Yes, with Paiming, the mouth of God. It's no wonder that Ing doesn't like to talk. Luo Chen teased with a smile. God. God's mouth? Paiming was stunned, and looked at Luo Chen in confusion. The eye of God is an external organ that guides people to use elemental power, just like Paiming often explains to Ing, and it is also like Ying's external mouth. So it is called the mouth of God. Luo Chen said. Puff. Hearing Luo Chen's words, Ing couldn't help but chuckle. Paiming was so angry that he almost went crazy when he heard Luo Chen's words. Paiming is not the mouth of God. What kind of description is this? Paiming said angrily with his hands on his waist. You are so hateful. Paiming is going to give you an ugly nickname. Forget it. Luo Chen, you are wise and brave. There is no ugly nickname. Paiming originally wanted to give Luo Chen a nickname, but thinking of Luo Chen's terrible look and bloody means when he was angry just now, he immediately changed his words with a flattering smile on his face. You little guy. Luo Chen smiled unhappily, grabbed Paiming from the air, and held her little face in his arms. Ing. Paiming looked at Ing, hoping that she could save herself from Luo Chen's clutches. Unfortunately, Ing simply pretended not to see it, which was so funny. Luo Chen was so scary, she would not help Paiming. What if Luo Chen bullied her? Chapter 103. Okay, stop messing around. Paiming, what do you like to eat? After playing with Paiming for a while, Luo Chen let go of Paiming. Paiming looked at the dazzling array of dishes on the menu and laughed. I like them all. In that case, then give me half a portion of each. Luo Chen smiled and looked at the waiter next to him and said, then give me 1 portion of the first half of the menu. Okay, Lord Luo Chen. The waiter nodded and turned to leave the box. Oh my God. Luo Chen, you are a good person. Hearing Luo Chen's generosity, Paiming happily flew around Luo Chen twice. Now I am a good person again. Luo Chen laughed dumbly. Wasn't he just showing off his evil look when he bullied Paiming just now? Luo Chen, is it too expensive? Ing looked at Luo Chen and said, it doesn't matter. Since I am entertaining you, it is naturally of a higher standard. Luo Chen waved his hand and said, Ing had no idea that when these famous families entertained Luo Chen, it was much more luxurious than this. Wu Yaoting served the dishes very quickly. After a while, one exquisite dish after another was sent to the box and placed on the table in an exquisite and orderly manner. Looking at the dazzling array of delicacies, Paiming's saliva flowed down. She looked at Luo Chen expectantly. After all, she would not dare to speak if the master did not speak. We are all friends. Why are there so many rules? Let's eat, Luo Chen said with a smile. Okay. Pai Ming heard Luo Chen say this and began to eat these delicacies crazily. Looking at Pai Ming's appearance, Ing held her forehead slightly. It was so embarrassing. It was as if she hadn't eaten for 180 years. Want a drink? Luo Chen poured himself a glass of soju and asked Ing. I drank before, but not much. Ing nodded and poured herself a glass of soju. Ahem. Soju is a bit strong. Ing has no experience. She took a big sip and started to cough. Her fair face turned red. Soju is a strong liquor. You have to taste it slowly. Luo Chen smiled. Yeah. Ing nodded and said, the special blends and cider I drank in Mon before were sweet and not very strong. This is my first time with strong liquor. Ha ha ha. Strong liquor feels good when it goes down the throat. Luo Chen smiled and raised his glass. When you come to Inazuma, enjoy the scenery and culture of Inazuma. Okay. Ing nodded and clinked glasses with Luo Chen. Soon, the food and wine were finished. At this moment, Ing was also a little drunk and her face was flushed, while Paimon's belly was round and he felt super happy. You just came to Inazuma. Take a good rest today. Luo Chen said with a smile. There is a hotel next door. I will take you there to get a room. Okay, then I'll trouble you. Ing nodded. She had just finished drinking and felt dizzy. It was not suitable for the commission task. Put it on the account of Mingshin Taisha. Luo Chen called the waiter and said. Luo Chen's behavior made Ing and Pai Ming look sideways. It reminded her of a social loser who ate and drank all day long. As the god of Inazuma, it is normal for Mingshin Taisha, which serves gods, to settle the bill, right? Luo Chen explained with a smile. Advertisement, yeah. Ing nodded quickly. He took Ing and Pai Ming to the hotel next door and booked a room. Luo Chen was going to keep the bill for Mingshin Taisha, but Ing felt embarrassed and quickly took out Mora. Okay then. Luo Chen nodded and said, be careful when you go to Heike Island. When you complete the mission, come to Mingshin Taisha to find me. I will basically be at Mingshin Taisha 89. Okay. Ing nodded to show that she understood. Luo Chen chatted with the two of them for a few words and turned away. Pai Ming, what do you think of Luo Chen? Sitting cross-legged on the big bed, Ing looked at Pai Ming, who was lying on the bed with Gu Yu. Luo Chen? He is a good man. Pai Ming laughed. Those who can treat Pai Ming to a meal are all good people. Okay, Pai Ming, I'm serious. Ing rolled her eyes and said, I feel like he's not real to me. Ing said, he was a very gentle person in Liyue and just now, and he looked very approachable, but he looked really scary in the outlying island. But it was the man named Hiragi Shinsuke who angered the gods first. Paimon said, didn't Luo Chen say that? He violated the ban, repeatedly insulted the gods, and committed treason. As the god of Inazuma, I think it's normal for Luo Chen to be angry. After all, treason and disrespect for gods are mistakes of principle. Paimon said, gods rule the world. If mortals are still so disrespectful to gods and don't listen to orders, then I think it's understandable for gods to kill them. Do you think everyone is as heartless as the guy in the mall? He smiled as if nothing happened when he was slapped by a lady. Paimon said, besides, even if it was Wendy, he did not give in when facing Teverin and Mond. Paimon said, gods have their own principles and bottom lines, which cannot be violated. It seems so. Ing nodded thoughtfully. She vaguely felt that Wendy should be no simple matter, although this be asterisk 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 asterisk, D always said that he had no power. Oh Ing, why do you think so much? Luo Chen is our friend. If we don't touch his bottom line, there will be no problem. Paimon said nonchalantly. Zero. Besides, what Luo Chen did was for Inazuma, and we will not hurt Inazuma. Paimon said, just complete Luo Chen's task. Paimon, you are right. Ing nodded. With Luo Chen, she doesn't need to be wanted in Inazuma. What else can she ask for? I thought it would be difficult to see General Lei Dian under the National Closure Order and the Eye Hunting Order. If Luo Chen could take them there, it would be very simple. So we are here in Inazuma. It will be very easy with Luo Chen. Pai Ming stretched. She was so full. Well, Ing nodded and said, Pai Ming, I'm going to take a shower. You come with me. You are not allowed to sleep in a sweat. Pai Ming flew up reluctantly and said, I'm exhausted. I don't want to go. Let's go. Ing pulled Pai Ming into the bathroom. Wow, even the bathroom is so luxurious. Pai Ming said, I like this kind of bathroom, Ing. Write it down quickly and change the bathroom in my room to this in Chenjeli. Okay. Ing nodded and wrote down the structure of the bathroom. Chapter 104. After parting with Ying and Pai Ming, Luo Chen thought about it, packed some food, and flew directly to the Kanjo magistrate's office. At the Kanjo magistrate's office, Luo Chen pushed open the door of the office and saw Hiragi Chihaya lying on the table after handling some things in the morning. Her body was twitching and she was obviously crying. Hearing the sound of the door being pushed open, Hiragi Chihaya sorted out her emotions and raised her head and asked, Lord Luo Chen, why are you here? Hiragi Chihaya wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes, forced a smile and walked over, took Luo Chen's hand, and took him to sit on the sofa. Lord Luo Chen, please wait a moment. I'll make you a cup of tea. Hiragi Chihaya was held in Luo Chen's arms before she finished speaking. Hiragi Chihaya was stunned. This was the first time she was actively held in Luo Chen's arms. She stared blankly at the companion. 71. Looking at chilly Hiragi's tearful appearance, Luo Chen lowered his head and kissed her lips. Chilly Hiragi closed her eyes, hugged Luo Chen's neck with her hands, and recalled every fragment of her acquaintance with Luo Chen in her mind. After a long time, the two separated their lips. Chilly Hiragi hugged Luo Chen again and took the initiative to kiss him. Good guy. Seeing Chilly Hiragi, who was a little crazy, Luo Chen no longer hesitated and hugged Chilly Hiragi with his backhand. After a long time, Luo Chen looked at Chilly Hiragi, who was panting in his arms, and said, Chinli, eat something? Okay. Chilly Hiragi was also a little hungry. She sat down and opened the food that Luo Chen packed for her. Lord Luo Chen, you eat too? Chilly Hiragi said. It's okay, I just ate. Luo Chen said. Yeah. Hearing this, Chihaya Hiragi said nothing more. As the eldest daughter of the Hiragi family, she ate very elegantly. Lord Luo Chen, in fact, regarding my father, I know that he deserved to die. Chihaya Hiragi said softly while eating. I have been acting as the governor these days and found many evidences of his crimes. Every one of them is terrifying. A visa for foreign travelers to the Yuangwa Supervisory Office actually costs 600,000 mora, and the commercial tax for foreign merchants on the outlying islands is as high as 45 points, including the sky-high price of grain exported to Heike Island. Each one of them is an absolute death penalty. Chihaya Hiragi said, I know that he can't escape the death penalty, but I don't quite understand whether money and power can really turn a person from an honest official who fights for the people into such a huge corrupt official. In such a short time, he has become a completely different person, black inside and out. Hiragi Chisato was a little sad. I can't believe that he actually really did such a thing that would be despised and infamous for eternity. Advertisement as an official. You are trusted by the general. Shouldn't you be excellent in all aspects? Hiragi Chisato sighed. It's just that I lost my mother when I was young, and my father never remarried. Now that my father is dead, countless uncles in the family seem to be eyeing the position of Kanjo Bugyo. Hiragi Chisato said helplessly, Master Peichin, I don't seem to have anyone to rely on. Who said that? Luo Chen pinched Hiragi Chinli's pretty face and said, I will be your support in the future, and no one will dare to bully you anymore. Chinli, be my woman. Luo Chen said very bluntly, I will be your strongest backer. Hearing Luo Chen's words, Hiragi Chinli could no longer hold back. Tears fell. She threw herself into Luo Chen's arms and nodded constantly. Lord Luo Chen, I do. I really want this day for a long time. Hiragi Chinli is just an ordinary rich lady after all. These days have made her too tired, and Luo Chen's words are like a ray of light to mend her wounded heart. But just now you said that someone in the Hiragi family is eyeing the position of Kanjo Bugyo? Luo Chen asked. Yeah, some people have already come to me. Even some family leaders under the Hiragi family have come to me, asking me to resign from the position of executive and then write to recommend them. Hiragi Chisato nodded. This group of people seemed to have become unscrupulous after seeing that Hiragi Shinsuke was abolished by Luo Chen and the Hiragi family was declining. They even threatened to write a joint letter to the castle tower. Hiragi Chisato said with a pout. She was brought up by the general himself, so why is she afraid of these? TSK. It's really interesting, a bunch of hindsight. Luo Chen smacked his lips. Sure enough, there are such trash who take advantage of others' misfortunes in every world. So, give me the list of people who have come to you, Luo Chen said. Give me all those who have come to you and asked you to resign, and I will talk to them personally. Luo Chen's eyes flashed with murderous intent. This group of people can also be included in the ranks of the Great Purge. There are plenty of people and talents. Just kill them and make up for it. Okay, I got it. Hiragi Chisato nodded, got up from Luo Chen, took out a pen and paper, and wrote his name for Luo Chen. There are quite a few people. Luo Chen looked at them. Wow, this is interesting. Except for a few relatives of the Hiragi family, most of them are from other families under the name of Kanjo Bugyo, and there are as many as 8 or 9 people from different families who have come to see Hiragi Chisato. This group of people are parasites. Luo Chen said lightly. The country does not need parasites. They can't make any contribution to Inazuma, so there is no need for them to exist in Inazuma. Hiragi Chihaya nodded. This group of people probably won't live long. She asked, Lord Luo Chen, do you still need me to find some evidence about them? No need. Luo Chen raised the list in his hand and said, this is enough. Sometimes, God's judgment does not need too much evidence. However, you don't need to call me Lord Luo Chen in the future, just call me by my name. Luo Chen smiled and said, you are my woman, there is no need to be so unfamiliar. Luo Chen. Hiragi Chihaya nodded, still feeling a little uncomfortable. It always felt a little strange to call her like that. Since Hiragi Chihaya was in a bad mood, Luo Chen stayed with her until the evening. Luo Chen wanted to leave, but was stopped by Hiragi Chihaya. Luo Chen, tonight, I want to serve you and fulfill my duties as a woman, okay? Hiragi Chihaya asked cautiously, her eyes as warm as spring water and her face flushed. Looking at Hiragi Chihaya's soft face and eyes full of affection, Luo Chen did not respond, but directly carried Hiragi Chihaya horizontally and walked towards Hiragi Chihaya's house under her exclamation. Well, with a painful groan, Hiragi Chihaya finally gave everything to Luo Chen. From now on, he is the only one she can rely on in this world. Chapter 105. The next morning, Luo Chen opened his eyes and looked at Chihaya Hiragi, who still had a trace of tears on her face. Luo Chen gently stood up. Luo Chen, Chihaya Hiragi's voice was gentle. She looked at Luo Chen and called, Master. Chihaya Hiragi was a very traditional Inazuma woman. When she gave everything to Luo Chen, she decided that Luo Chen was her master and took the initiative to call him master. Ding! Congratulations to the master for confirming the complete relationship with Chisato Hiragi, unlocking the magical power of telepathy, and knowing what all living beings are thinking. Ding! Congratulations to the master for unlocking the SS level Ice Hershers template and obtaining 2 Mimic Hershers cores, Ice Hershers and Void Hershers. Please note that the Mimic Hershers is only a level, and its power comes from the master's imaginary space. The core owner has full authority and can give the core to others, only for women. Luo Chen was stunned. The power of the Ice Hershers. It reminded him of Anna. The power of the Ice Hershers is also a Hershers with extremely strong destructive power. The power of the SS level Ice Hershers can already surpass the power of the 04 Ice Queen. More importantly, the Mimic Hershers core. This thing is very precious, and it can allow ordinary people to directly possess powers similar to those of the Hershers. Although it is only a level, its power is almost comparable to that of the immortals and demons. Moreover, the power of the pseudo-Hersher comes from Luo Chen. This power can be used to give ordinary people like Hiragi Chihaya who don't have the Eye of God, so that they can also gain extraordinary power. At least there won't be too much danger. Master, what are you thinking about? Hiragi Chihaya said gently. She endured the discomfort of her body and got up to help Luo Chen dress. Okay, Chihaya, you have a good rest today. After Luo Chen had his telepathic power, he could clearly feel the love, admiration, and dependence in Hiragi Chihaya's heart. She had regarded Luo Chen as everything to him. But there are still matters of the Kanda Bugyo to deal with. Hiragi Chihaya shook her head and said, I'm fine, dear. Listen to me, you have a good rest today. Isn't it the Kanda Bugyo office? I'll come. Just in time. There's nothing to do today. Luo Chen patted his chest, indicating that he could do it too. Occasionally, being busy with government affairs is also a kind of elegant interest in life, isn't it? Besides, Luo Chen is also good at these things. How can he not handle the matter of the Kanding Bugyo? Besides, the Kanding Bugyo office is so close to here. I can come here to take a look when I have nothing to do. Luo Chen said with a sly smile. Okay then. Hiragi Chiri heard Luo Chen say this and no longer refused. Oh, by the way, Chiri, I'll give you a gift. Luo Chen said. What is it? Hiragi Chiri looked at Luo Chen expectantly. This. A crystal blue gem core appeared in Luo Chen's hand, emitting a faint chill. When the gem appeared, the whole room almost froze. What is this? Hiragi Chiri shuddered, wrapped tightly in the quilt, and looked at the gem in Luo Chen's hand curiously. This is the Hersher's core. With this, you can gain the power to manipulate the ice element. In fact, The Hershers of ice should be similar to the Hershers of fire, manipulating the movement of molecules. But since this is Teyvat, I won't go into it too much, Luo Chen said. From today on, you will no longer be an ordinary person without power, and I don't have to worry too much about your safety. Too expensive. Hiragi Chisato waved his hand, picked up the necklace with 3 golden crystals from his chest and said, Master, look, the 3 space bombs you gave me before are still here. Advertisement. This is a one-time thing after all. Luo Chen waved his hand and said. He stretched out his hand and pressed the pseudo-Hersher core on Hiragi Chihaya's chest. In an instant, the pseudo-Hersher core merged into Hiragi Chihaya's body. A powerful force instantly burst out from Hiragi Chihaya's body, and the powerful force continued to transform Hiragi Chihaya's weak, mortal body. Not long after, Hiragi Chihaya opened her eyes. Her eyes had turned into azure blue, which looked very beautiful. Her skin became whiter and more delicate, and it was so soft that it could be broken by a blow. Hiragi Chihaya felt the explosive power in her body, spread her palms, and ice condensed in her hands. Master, this power is so strong. Chisato Hiragi said excitedly. I should be as strong as those owners of the Eye of God, right? Baby, you can be bolder. Luo Chen smiled. You are much stronger than them. Even the top owners of the Eye of God are not your opponents. Of course, you still need to learn how to use power and improve your martial arts. Luo Chen said. Now you have great power, but you have never practiced martial arts, so you are still a little lacking in skills and power. If you want to learn how to use power in martial arts, you can find General Ing. She is good at these. Luo Chen said. Yeah, I know. Hiragi Chili looked at Luo Chen tenderly. She felt so happy now. Hee hee. Seeing that Hiragi Chili was even more charming without a single strand of hair, Luo Chen smirked and directly hugged Hiragi Chili into his arms. Hiragi Chili was just a mortal last night. Luo Chen was holding back his strength in everything he did, not daring to use too much force, so naturally he didn't have much fun. Now that she has obtained the power of a pseudo-Hersher, Luo Chen doesn't need to hold back too much. Hiragi Chili would not refuse any of Luo Chen's requests, so naturally she would give him whatever he wanted, which resulted in most of the morning having passed, and Hiragi Chili was so tired that she didn't even want to move a finger. Baby, have a good rest. After asking Hiragi Chihaya's pretty face, Luo Chen, who was full of spring, got up, put on his clothes, and left the room under Hiragi Chihaya's eyes. After Luo Chen left, Hiragi Chihaya fell asleep with satisfaction. Luo Chen is a god after all. So powerful. Indescribably powerful. Luo Chen walked to the office of the magistrate's office. At this moment, many people were waiting outside. Seeing that it was Luo Chen, they hurriedly saluted. Lord Luo Chen. Yes. Luo Chen nodded and said, Today, the acting magistrate is a little unwell. I will work for her for a day. If you have anything to do, just come and give it to me. Yes. Everyone nodded, without any doubt. After all, Luo Chen has the power to manage all things of Inazuma. Luo Chen walked into the office, sat on the chair, and felt the hardness of the wooden chair, which seemed very uncomfortable. With a wave of his hand, the power of the ruler of reason directly constructed the leather office chair of the previous life, and the comfort came up all of a sudden. Well, real leather is still more comfortable. Luo Chen sat down, looked at the people outside and said, Come in. The people outside waited for Luo Chen's permission and lined up in an orderly manner. In front of the gods, they did not dare to be disorderly. Chapter 106. Time passed quickly, and Luo Chen also solved all the problems perfectly. Looking at the empty office, Luo Chen stretched his body. It was already noon. Just as Luo Chen was about to buy some food to go back to Hiragi's house, there was a sound of footsteps outside, accompanied by a burst of arrogant voices. Hiragi Chisato, have you thought clearly about the matter I told you to resign? A woman still wants to manage the Kanjo Bugyo? Who gave you the courage? If you know what's good for you, go and write to the general and give the position of Kanjo Bugyo to our Taniguchi family. Otherwise, the door of the office was kicked open, and a young man walked in arrogantly. Before he finished speaking, he found that the person sitting on the chair was not Hiragi Chisato. He seemed to have seen a photo of the person in front of him. It seemed to be the new god, Luo Chen. The young man's face turned pale all of a sudden. Otherwise, what? Keep talking. Luo Chen asked with interest. No? Nothing? The young man forced a smile and wanted to rush out. Then, at the moment he turned around, the sub-sky spear pierced through his legs, causing him to scream in pain. What a noise! Luo Chen waved his hand in the air, and the young man's head turned 360 degrees. The screams stopped abruptly, and his body collapsed to the ground, obviously deader than dead. Lord Luo Chen, what happened? The patrolling samurai of the Kanjo Bugyo heard the screams coming from the Kanjo Bugyo's office and rushed in. He saw the young man on the ground with a miserable death, swallowed his saliva and said, Lord Luo Chen, he is Taniguchi. I'm not interested in knowing who he is. Luo Chen waved his hand to interrupt the samurai, pointed at the body and said, Throw this guy back to Taniguchi's family? Yes. Lord Luo Chen. The samurai nodded quickly. He stepped forward to hold up the body and walked out. Taniguchi? One of the families of the Kanjo Bugyo? Luo Chen thought about it and didn't expect that a small Taniguchi family would dare to covet the position of Kanjo Bugyo. But Luo Chen was too lazy to think about it. At this moment, he still planned to go back to find Hiragi Chisato, who was probably still sleeping. Luo Chen carried food back to Hiragi Chisato's room. At this moment, Hiragi Chisato was lying on the bed looking at the ceiling, wondering what she was thinking about. What are you thinking about? Luo Chen asked curiously. Ah, master, you are back. Hiragi Chisato got up, greeted him and said, Nothing? I was just thinking about you. How did you feel about Kanjo Bugyo in the morning? Hiragi Chisato asked with a smile. It was also not too busy. Luo Chen said, I brought you some delicious food. While the two were eating lunch, Luo Chen suddenly asked, Chisato, if anyone dares to threaten you and Kanjo Bugyo in the next 2 days, I will give you the power to kill him on the spot. Chisato Hiragi was stunned, somewhat puzzled. I just killed a loser this morning. It seems to be the Taniguchi family? Luo Chen said, These people are indeed a little too proud of themselves. The death of Shinsuke Hiragi does not mean the decline of the Hiragi family. Chisato, if there is such a person again, just kill him directly. Don't think about the consequences. If they dare to come to the Kanjo Bugyo to cause trouble to you, kill them one family at a time. Luo Chen said, You now have the power to destroy them easily, so there is no need to hide your weakness. Advertisement I know. Hiragi Chisato nodded. She had never killed a chicken since she was a child. Suddenly she was asked to kill someone. She was a little psychologically uncomfortable, but she didn't want to disappoint Luo Chen. At this moment, the head of the Taniguchi family had found that his eldest son was missing and asked curiously. At this time, a Kanjo Bugyo warrior came in carrying a figure and threw the body directly at the door of the Taniguchi family's restaurant with a cold look in his eyes. My son. When the lady of the Taniguchi family saw the appearance of the body on the ground, she burst into tears. Isn't this his son? What happened? The head of the Taniguchi family had a gloomy face. He glared at the Kanjo Bugyo warrior and asked, Your son is really outstanding. The Kanjo Bugyo warrior was too lazy to pay attention and said sarcastically, What status? How dare you provoke Lord Luo Chen? After that, the Kanjo Bugyo warrior turned around and left. He is now an admirer of Lord Luo Chen, so he naturally won't give the Taniguchi family a good face. Luo Chen? The head of the Taniguchi family looked gloomy. The wife of the Taniguchi family was still crying and yelling for her son to be rewarded. Even if it is Luo Chen, you can't kill my son for no reason, right? The head of the Taniguchi family said with a cold look in his eyes, Take people and go to the Kanjo Bugyo with me in the afternoon to ask for an explanation. In the afternoon, in response to Chisato Hiragi's request, Luo Chen brought Chisato Hiragi to the Kanjo Bugyo. At this time, there were actually a lot of people outside the Kanjo Bugyo. There were also countless people crying, making the entire Kanjo Bugyo restless. As a member of the Kanjo Bugyo warriors couldn't force people to leave, which made them even more arrogant. What's going on? Luo Chen frowned and asked. The Kanjo Bugyo warrior who delivered the body in the morning hurriedly said, Lord Luo Chen, it's the Taniguchi family. They are looking for you with their families to give you a reason, saying that you killed the eldest son of the Taniguchi family for no reason. You are quite noisy. Luo Chen looked at dozens of people kneeling there, crying and wailing, asking Luo Chen to come out, and the women kept scolding while crying. It's really annoying. Qianli, these people are handed over to you, so that they will never speak again in the future. Luo Chen picked his ears, not caring about these people at all, and kicked a Taniguchi family member who blocked the way in front of him and hit him to death on a tree, and walked straight into the Kanjo Bugyo. Handing it over to Hiragi Chitorai is also to hone her cruelty. Luo Chen's words are very clear. Destroy them. Chisato Hiragi walked forward, Manuoheo, and said loudly, Do you really think that the gods don't know everything you have done? However, the Taniguchi family was already cursing dirty, which made Chisato Hiragi's face gloomy, and he didn't plan to say anything. I am the acting Kanjo Bugyo appointed by the general personally. The Taniguchi family used coercion and bribery to disobey the general's order. Damn it. After Chisato Hiragi finished speaking, the entire Kanjo Bugyo seemed to have entered winter and became cold, and those people from the Taniguchi family were actually frozen into ice sculptures, and all the people who came died in an instant. It's God's punishment. God's punishment. The people watching around saw this scene and knelt down, shouting. In their cognition, only God could do such a scene. The Taniguchi family must have done something that angered the heavens and the people. They deserve to die. Sure enough, people in this world believe in gods, and the judgments sent down by gods, even if there is no evidence for the time being, most people still believe it. Chapter 107. After doing all this, Chisato Hiragi said to the samurai who was in charge of the Kanjo Bugyo next to him, "Go and throw these people away. Don't leave them at the door of the Kanjo Bugyo and affect the people's business." "Yes, sir." The samurai nodded and hurried to carry away the ice sculptures. The Taniguchi family was basically all dead, so it didn't matter where they were thrown. She walked into the office with a calm face. When Chisato Hiragi saw Luo Chen, her face turned pale. This was her first time to kill someone, and it was also the first time she killed the entire Taniguchi family. "Chisato, you did a great job. As a superior, don't be too kind," Luo Chen praised. "If you are too kind, you will only be regarded as weak and can be bullied," Luo Chen said lightly. "I know, head of the family." Chisato Hiragi nodded, indicating that she understood. "How does this power feel? It's very useful, right?" Luo Chen said with a smile. "Yeah." Hiragi Chisato nodded. Then she was silent for a moment and said, "Master, this power is too strong. I'm afraid I can't control it." "I understand what you mean." Luo Chen nodded. As a mortal, he suddenly gained powerful power, and his mentality was indeed unstable, but there was no need to worry too much. The power produced by the system basically had no side effects. "Don't worry, this is very normal. Just relax." Luo Chen smiled and comforted Hiragi Chisato's emotions. "With you by my side, I'm not afraid of anything," Hiragi Chihaya said gently. When Luo Chen was accompanying Hiragi Chihaya, Ing and Pai Meng had already set out early in the morning. After completing the tasks assigned by Luo Chen and meeting General Lei Dian, they could relax. It is said that Luo Chen's conferred god ceremony is coming soon, and a grand ceremony will be held at that time, and representatives from the other 6 countries will come. "Oh, how abominable. Luo Chen asked us to go to Heike Island without giving us a map." Pai Ming and Ing, who were covered in dust, were hiding under a big rock to avoid the rain. Just now they asked for directions. They have been walking for a day. Because they don't know the way, they have only reached the stepping sand. And the weather in Inazuma is really outrageous. It changes in an instant. Just now it was clear and sunny, and suddenly there was a strong wind and heavy rain. "Ing, let's go to the Chingu pot to avoid the rain," Pai Ming said. "No, Pai Ming." Ing waved her hand and said, "I just saw that there are many wandering warriors near us. What if they are picked up while we are resting inside? I heard from people that these sea ghosts and wild people are not good guys." "Wow, then we should take shelter here." Pai Ming was startled and said quickly, "Ing, people say that thunder is the will of General Lei Dian. Do you think the general is angry now?" Pai Ming was very bored and chatted with Ing. "It shouldn't be." Ing waved her hand and said, "How can the gods be angry so easily?" No? Pai Ming thought of Luo Chen's appearance again and said, "But Luo Chen was really scary when he was angry last time. Look at the light spear beside him that can pierce through space, and the one called Hiragi Shinsuke was pierced by thousands of arrows. But Luo Chen should restrain himself." Ing thought for a while and said, "Look at Asel. A vortex demon suppressed by Zhongli has such great power, and can easily move mountains and seas. If Luo Chen is really angry, will he be more terrifying than Asel?" "Ken, it is certain." Paimon nodded and said, "The power of gods is very strong." "Ing, have you forgotten? When the singing was a street singer, it was the wind and snow that blew away and the mountaintops that were cut off to form the current Mondstadt. The lonely cloud pavilion that suppressed Asel was also formed by the rock bolts cast by Zhongli back then. Oh, by the way, I heard about something." Paimon thought of something and said, "It was General Raiden of Inazuma, who also had an extremely amazing record. According to the person who just pointed the way, the front is Bang Island and I just remembered it." Paimon said seriously, If, the sea prayer god Oroba that Luo Chen mentioned, when it invaded Bang Island, General Raiden slashed the Wuxiang sword on Bang Island and killed the sea prayer god Oroba. The afterglow of the Wuxiang sword split Bang Island in two, forming the Wuxiang Blade Gap. When the rain stops, we will go forward and reach Bayan Island. We can also see the narrow space of Wuxiang's blade cut by Wuxiang. Paiming said, Okay. Ing nodded. When she was drinking with Zhongli before, Zhongli mentioned Luo Chen and said that he was not as strong as Luo Chen in combat. So you can imagine how much damage Luo Chen would cause if he used all his strength. Advertisement at this moment. A bolt of lightning struck from the sky, knocking down a tree and smashing towards the two of them. Run! Holding Paiming, Ing dodged the tree in one step, but the heavy rain soaked the two of them. However, the lightning seemed to have eyes. Like this, lightning kept hitting the two of them. Oh? Ing dodged the lightning left and right. Ing, did you do something bad behind my back? Paimon, who was dizzy from being shaken in his arms, shouted. How do I know why it hits me? Ing was also very aggrieved. She was a good person. Why did the lightning chase her and hit her? You didn't make the thunder god angry, did you? Paimon asked. What nonsense are you talking about? Ing had a question mark on her face. If I knew the thunder god, would we still be suffering here? Then what should we do? Paimon yelled loudly, in the heavy rain. You couldn't hear anyone unless you spoke loudly. I don't know either. Find a cave. Ing fled madly while dodging lightning. At this time, a group of sea ghosts rushed out. They had been hungry for a long time, and when they saw someone, they naturally wanted to rob. Get out of the way. Ing turned into lightning and quickly dodged several sea ghosts, but the sea ghosts were pitiful. A thick thunderbolt fell from the sky and directly penetrated one of the sea ghosts. Because the few people were standing too close, a chain reaction occurred instantly, and the thunderbolt suddenly several sea ghosts were electrocuted to a crisp, and they lay down without even screaming. How pitiful! Ing looked back at the sea ghosts who were chopped into charcoal and mourned for a second in her heart. Seeing the lightning falling again, she was scared and continued to flee. General, don't strike us. Paimon's wailing sounded. Although she was held by Ing jumped up and down, making her dizzy. P.S. After the affairs of the Inazuma state are dealt with, I will not write this kind of plot anymore. Most of the plots are daily life and various cool dramas. Chapter 108. Hoo. After running for an unknown amount of time, Ing saw a cave not far away. Just as she was about to run over, she found that the thunder had stopped, the rain had stopped, and the weather had cleared up. Hoo. Ing let go of Paiming, wiped the rain off her face, and panted while leaning against a tree. Strike. Why don't you strike? Keep striking. I finally found a cave. Ing said angrily. Paiming was stunned when she heard Ying's words. She flew forward, touched Ying's head, and asked worriedly, Ing, you're not going to hurt your head, are you? No, I'm just angry. Ing waved her hand and said, What is this thunder and lightning for? Why is it chasing me to strike? If we hadn't met General Thunder yet, I would have really thought you had offended General Thunder and Lightning, Paiming said with lingering fear. Forget it. Let's go to the dust song pot and change clothes and continue on our way. Ing was also a Buddha. After all, he had experienced 2 countries and had never encountered such evil things. After taking out the dust song, Ing took Paiming in to take a shower and change clothes. When he came out again, Ing was wearing a white combat skirt. Okay, Ing seemed to have a special liking for white. Paiming was wearing the children's clothes he bought in Liyue before, which looked very cute. Ing, I'm hungry. After coming out, Paiming looked at Min Ing with a pitiful face and said, Okay, let's go to the cave in front to rest for a night and hide the dust song pot in a hidden place. Ing nodded and said, Paiming, go pick up some dry firewood. I'll see if I can catch a few birds and make some skewers for you. Ing said, Okay. Knowing to eat, Paiming was full of energy and hurried to find dry firewood. Mingxian Taisha at night. Tonight is the time for Qian Luo Chen and Ye Shensi. Luo Chen lay on a big rock, resting his head on Ye Shensi's soft and fragrant legs, letting Ye Shensi play with his white hair. Achen, do you mean that the traveler has come? Ye Shensi asked. Yes, I asked her to collect the current situation of Heike Island. Luo Chen nodded and said, Originally, I wanted her to break the situation of the closed country order, but I didn't expect that the resurrection of Zhen had changed the ideas of Ing and the general. Luo Chen smiled. With you, Inazuma will become better. Ye Shensi looked at Luo Chen gently. Luo Chen allowed Zhen to be resurrected and reign again, and let the general and Ing have their own bodies. Inazuma's new life is given by Luo Chen. Oh, by the way, today I heard from Kitsuzai Palace that you went to the island yesterday? Yae Shinsi asked. Did you teach Hiragi Shinsuke a lesson? No, I killed him. Luo Chen shook his head and said, Kill him? Didn't you say you would hand him over to the general for trial? Yae Shinsi asked curiously. She didn't care if Hiragi Shinsuke died, but she was curious about Luo Chen's change of mind. Humph, I was thinking this way. Let Shin judge his guilt. But now I think it's unnecessary. Luo Chen snorted. Too kind. It makes these people think I'm weak and can be bullied. Hiragi Chisato took over the Kanjo Bugyo. This was an order issued by the castle tower himself, and those families in the Kanjo Bugyo dared to threaten Hiragi Chisato secretly. This is completely not taking me and the general seriously, Luo Chen sneered. Yae Shinsi was silent for a moment and said with a hint of sarcasm, I knew it. This group of people have long been blinded by power. It's not just Kanjo Bugyo. After Tenryo Bugyo's Kujo Takayuki was imprisoned, the Tenryo Bugyos are also ready to make a move, especially the Takagi family. Yae Shinko said, I have always wanted Kujo Kamaji to write to the general, resign his duties, and recommend the Takagi family. Heh. Luo Chen sneered. It's the same method as the Kanjo Bugyos. It's just a bunch of jumping clowns. Yae Shinko shook his head and said, Regarding the acting Tenryo Bugyo, I think it's better to give it to Kujo Sera. Luo Chen said, Loyalty, righteousness. Tenryo Bugyo in charge of military affairs is loyal. Advertisement, I really think so. Yae Shinko nodded and said, but the Tenryo Bugyo might not let the Kujo family continue to serve because of the crimes committed by the Kujo family. It's hard to say. Luo Chen curled his lips and said, Kujo Saro's Kujo family is not Kujo Takayuki's Kujo family, and Hiragi Chisato is very capable and can be the Kanjo Bugyo. Even if the Hiragi family is wrong. So what? Luo Chen said, the family tree will open a new page from Hiragi Chisato. It doesn't matter if the previous embarrassing things are thrown away. That's right. I'm just afraid that some people will have opinions. The child god said, have opinions? Hold it in. Luo Chen said coldly, the will of the gods, mortals just have to obey. Don't obey? Why not challenge me to a duel? I'm happy to accompany you. Then I think no one dares to say anything. Yae God said with a smile, duel with Luo Chen? This is an idea that only a what in the brain would have. Luo Chen's current combat power can easily defeat Ing. By the way, Achen, about the Shibuxing? Yae Shinsi asked. Shibuxing actually secretly supported Heike Island with a lot of supplies, not just food, but also some family planning supplies and so on. Oh. Luo Chen nodded and said, it's okay. If this matter is not exposed, I allowed the food supply, and no one would say anything. What if the Shibuxing privately funded Heike Island is exposed? Yae Shinsi asked. That's easier to say. Just give them a positive image, be diligent in government and love the people, and support the poor people of Heike Island who can't make a living. It's a role model for all officials, isn't it? Luo Chen said. As for the government order, we don't have to care about what they say anyway. They dare not say it openly. You think so much. Protecting Shibuxing is nothing more than for Linghua. Yae Shinsi suddenly leaned over and smiled evilly at Luo Chen and said, Of course, Linghua is my baby. If I don't protect her, who else will? Luo Chen said with a smile. If anyone dares to bully you, I will twist his head off and kick it like a ball. Hee. The eightfold godchild enjoyed Luo Chen's favor very much. She lowered her head and kissed Luo Chen and said, I am very satisfied with your answer, so I want to reward you. Oh? What reward? Luo Chen asked curiously. Hee, come with me. The eightfold godchild pulled Luo Chen into the room, and Hu Zhaigong was lying on the bed. Oh, you are finally here. I have been waiting for so long. Hu Zhaigong yawned and said, If you don't come, I will fall asleep. Is this your reward? Luo Chen admitted that he was very surprised. The eightfold godchild nodded and said, Please use your imagination. Chapter 109. The next morning, in the cave, the Chunga pot was filled with light, and the figures of Ing and Pai Ming emerged. The two stretched and felt refreshed. Resting in the Chunga pot was so comfortable. It was indeed a must-have artifact for home travel. Let's go. Paimon, let's go quickly today. Ing said, Don't do it like yesterday. If it's still like yesterday, I'm so annoyed. Don't do it. Let's go quickly. Thinking of the scene where Ing was chased and struck by lightning yesterday, Paimon shuddered. She didn't want to experience this scene again in her life. The two walked quickly. After knowing the way, it took only half a day to reach Baiyan Island. Look. The front is the narrow space of Wuxiang Blade. Paimon suddenly pointed to the front and said excitedly. Wow, Paimon flew over first. Also hurriedly followed with 943. When she got there, found that the narrow space of Wuxiang Blade was hundreds of meters wide, like a natural moat, and the length was endless. Oh my god, this was actually cut out by a knife. Paimon sighed. If you were cut by this kind of power, you would definitely be wiped out directly, right? The battle between demons is really scary. Yes. Only when Ing saw the Wuxiang Blade narrow space with her own eyes could she understand the powerlessness of words. Words could not describe this wonder and the power of the gods. This power is really too scary. Look at the river water below. Suddenly, Paiming pointed at the river water underground, which was actually surging purple. A bird flying from the sky fell into it and turned into charcoal almost instantly. Oh my god. I didn't expect that such thunder elements would remain so dense after hundreds of years. We must be careful and must not fall in. If we fall in, we will die, Paiming said. Ing nodded. With such a dense thunder element, even if she had awakened the thunder element now, she felt a slight numbness in her body when she got closer to the Wuxiang Blade narrow space. You can imagine how terrible the concentration of thunder elements here is. Following the Wuxiang Blade narrow space, Ing and Paiming hurried on their way, because at the end of the Wuxiang Blade narrow space, across the sea, was Heike Island. Hey, that girl, what are you doing there? It's too dangerous. Just as Ing and Paiming approached the end of the Wuxiang Blade, an old voice came from behind, with a little anxiety. Huh. Ing and Paiming looked back and found that it was actually an old lady, standing far away and calling them. Ing and Paiming looked at each other, nodded, and ran over quickly. The one who called them was an old lady in simple clothes, hunched over, with a large basket on her back, which contained some wild vegetables covered with mud. Oh, how dare you get so close to the Wuxiang Blade? It's very dangerous. The old lady saw Ing and Paiming coming over and hurriedly said, Every year, many people get close to the Wuxiang Blade, paralyzed all over and fell in and died. Don't get any closer. The old lady looked at the two people who were now far away, and said with her hands in her hands, I have to go home too. Advertisement, Grandma. Where is your home? Let us take you back. Paiming said quickly, It's too dangerous for the old lady to go alone in this remote place. My home is on Heike Island, just across the sea. You don't have to worry about it. The old lady waved her hand and said, What a coincidence, Grandma. We are also going to Heike Island. Let us take you there. Paiming said, You are also going to Heike Island? Well, thank you for your help, the old lady said. The three of them got on the boat together, and Paiming asked curiously, Grandma, you live on Heike Island. Why did you come to Baiyan Island alone? Alas. The old lady sighed and said, There is no other way. All the edible vegetables on the island have been eaten up, and the closed-door order cannot trade with the outside world. I can only come to Baiyan Island to dig some wild vegetables. Ing and Paiming looked at each other and asked, Well, isn't it said that the Society Commissioner will continue to supply food to Heike Island normally? Yes. The old lady nodded, clasped her hands together and said, Thank you very much for the grace of Tianyu Zongzizun. If Tianyu Zongzizun hadn't agreed to supply food, I'm afraid Heike Island would starve to death. It's just that Heike Island is too seriously sanctified now, and the vegetables we planted have basically stopped growing, so... The old lady sighed and said, Sanctification? What is that? Paimon asked curiously. We don't know much either. This is what Lord Coral Palace told us. I only know that sanctification makes the land barren and plants can't grow normally. The old lady shook her head and said, Sanctification has existed for a long time. At that time, it could be resisted by relying on the sea god's sacrifice, but the growth rate of sanctification in recent years has been too terrible. Is that so? Ing pondered for a moment, and she decided to ask Luo Chen when she returned to see if he had any means to solve the problem of sanctification. By the way, Grandma, I want to ask you what you think about the battle between the Heike Island rebels and the shogunate? Paimon asked. She didn't forget the task Luo Chen gave them. What do you think? The old lady shook her head and said, I'm old and don't know much about these things, but I think there really shouldn't be any more wars. Children from every family go to the battlefield and never come back. But aren't Keiki Island and the shogunate one family? Although we believe in different gods, we all belong to Inazuma. The old lady said with some sadness. My grandson is in the resistance army now. I don't know how he is doing. I haven't sent a letter to my family for a long time. And now Lord Gochushu has lifted the blockade of the shogunate on Keiki Island. I don't want to see war anymore. Isn't it good for the whole family to live in harmony? Ing raised her eyebrows and asked, Then now Lord Gochushu has lifted the blockade and provided food. Hasn't the resistance army disbanded yet? Not yet. The old lady shook her head and said, I don't know the specifics, so that's how it is. Ing nodded. Soon, the three of them arrived at Heike Island. The old lady said goodbye to Ing and was about to go home, but was stopped by Ing. A large bundle of seaweed appeared in her hand. Girling, what are you doing? The old lady asked in surprise. This is the seaweed I collected before. Grandma, take it and cook it at home, Ing said with a smile. She has always had the habit of collecting. There are a lot of seaweeds in the space, and there are also seaweeds planted in the Chenggu pot. I still have a lot here. Thank you for bringing us to Heike Island. Please accept it. Ing was afraid that the old lady would refuse, so she said quickly, Okay, thank you, Girling. The old lady no longer refused. These seaweeds were indeed very needed. Chapter 110. It sounds like this, and it feels like Heike Island is so pitiful. Looking at the old grandmothers hobbing back to the village, Pa Ming sighed. The behavior is not forgiven, but I hope not to be angry on the ordinary people. Well, I think Luo Chen is not a bad god. I think we should beat him up when we see him. Paimon crossed his arms and said, Ing, when you see the young master in the future, beat him up. He deceived us so badly. Okay. Ing smiled and nodded. She was also very unhappy with what Tartaglia did. Echu. Tartaglia, who was far away in the Winter Palace, sneezed and felt a wave of malice behind her. The village is in front. Should we go and ask? I think what these people think should be what Luo Chen wants to know most, right? Paimon asked. Of course, let's go. Ing took Paimon into the village. After an hour or so, Ing and Paimon came out with a sigh. I didn't expect that these villagers didn't want to fight. Many old people hope their children will come back. Paimon sighed. Let's go somewhere else, see what they think, and then go to the Coral Palace to find the Coral Palace Heart Sea. Ling said. Okay. Paimon and Ing walked away. At this time in the castle tower, Luo Chen looked at the list drawn up by the lady in the Fox Palace, and found that there were actually many families who dared to hide the evil eye privately, and some even secretly bought the evil eye. This is the bad nature of some people. Luo Chen sneered. Even if it is the decree of the gods, they dare to disobey it. If that's the case, don't live in the world. Luo Chen looked at Lei Dianjin and said, Zhen, you have also seen that many people are just dogs that can't change their eating shit. Such people keep it one, alas. Lei Dianjin nodded. There were very few people who pretended to obey, but secretly disobeyed before her death. How come it has become like this after so long? Aegishong. Luo Chen called Aegishong in. The Aegishong warriors walked in and saluted. Lord Luo Chen, Lord General, what are your instructions? Take this list, and take people to clean them up for me. Luo Chen threw the list in his hand to Ao Jiezhong and said, Remember, chop them all up, everyone, bloodbath? Yes. Ao Jiezhong immediately understood what Luo Chen meant. Everyone. Lord Luo Chen is really cruel, not letting anyone go. Be careful. Many of them carry evil eyes. Luo Chen said, It is not ruled out that some people will counterattack before death. Ao Jiezhong is his own people, so it is better not to get hurt. Take this. Luo Chen waved his hand, and dense golden crystals flew to Ao Jiezhong and said, These crystals, each of you who is on a mission, crush them in a crisis to save your life. Thank you, Lord Luo Chen. Ao Jiezhong's eyes were full of gratitude. I didn't expect that the high and mighty God would also care about their safety. Well, go. Luo Chen nodded and said, Yes. Aegishong saluted and left with the golden crystal. Advertisement. It seems that there will be a bloody storm next. Lei Dianjin sighed. Humph. Luo Chen snorted. Before that, there is another idiot waiting to die in the prison. I really want to crush that idiot to death with my own hands. Luo Chen said. Kujo Takayuki? I have been too busy recently and have forgotten about him. Lei Dianjin suddenly thought of that guy. Sarah. Go and take out Kujo Takayuki and bring him here. Looking at Kujo Sarah, who was guarding on the side, Lei Dianjin handed the Mingxian order to Kujo Sarah and said, After all, if there is no Mingxian order, even Kujo Sarah must not get close to Kujo Takayuki. Yes, General. Kujosera had figured it out long ago. The once worshipped head of the family was now only cruel, the kind of cruelty that hurt Inazuma and deceived the general. Kujosera took the Mingshin order to the prison where Kujo Takayuki was imprisoned. This was where Inazuma imprisoned serious criminals. It was guarded by the Okujishu himself, and there was no sunlight inside. Stop, General Kujo. The Okujishu warriors on guard stretched out their hands to stop Kujosera and said, "This place is for serious criminals, and you are not allowed to approach without permission. I am under the order of the General and Lord Luo Chen to bring Kujo to the castle tower for trial. This is the Mingshin order." Kujo Jichuan showed the Mingshin order. After carefully checking the Mingshin order, the Okujishu saluted and took Kujosera around for a long time before reaching the deepest bottom of the prison. 607 Kujosera had never been to this place before. Every cell door was made of fine iron, and lightning flashed on it. In addition to the complex terrain, there were guards every 5 steps, so no one could escape. At the deepest cell, Oji opened the cell door and took Kujosera in. After entering, under the dim light, Kujosera saw Kujo Takayuki, who had been tortured to the point of being unrecognizable in these days. The endless pain and numbness made him want to go crazy, but every time he couldn't hold on, there would be a force in his body that restored his physical strength and mind, and then he continued to be tortured by severe pain. He couldn't eat or drink, and the OG warriors had to force his mouth open and force food into his mouth. If he said a few words, he would be beaten and whipped. This old man who had been rich all his life was really going to collapse completely. He really didn't want to experience this kind of hell again. When he tried to open his eyes, he found that it was actually Kujosera, and a glimmer of hope flashed in his eyes. P.S. This novel is a warm, sunny, and positive novel. The protagonist is not a cruel beast. Ordinary people, without betrayers, are all under the protection of the protagonist. Only those who disrespect the gods and betray will receive the due punishment. In the next chapter, Kujo Takayuki will die miserably, very miserably. Chapter 111. Clean him up and go to the castle tower. It's so dirty that it's a disgrace to the eyes of the general and Luo Chen. The warriors of Oji said to another warrior. Okay. The warrior nodded and directly brought a few buckets of water, pouring it on Kujo Takayuki. How dare you do this to me? Kujo Takayuki's teeth were gnashing, waiting for him to escape. He would kill them. Shut up. Hurry up. Don't keep the general and Luo Chen waiting for a long time. The warrior thought and didn't care about Kujo Takayuki's nonsense, kicked Kujo Takayuki on the butt, and kicked him out of the door. He laughed to death. He had entered this place, and he still wanted to live? General Kujo, the prisoner is handed over to you. Walking to the door of the prison, the warriors of Oji said, Okay, I will take him to the castle tower intact. Kujosera nodded, and after the handover, he took Kujo Kyoyuki out directly. Because of the handcuffs and leg irons, Kujo Takayuki walked very slowly. Kujosera couldn't bear to drag the man who had raised her, so she could only take Kujosera and walk slowly. Sarah, I am your father. Have you forgotten? Kujosera staggered. He looked at Kujosera and said with tears in his eyes, Father knows he was wrong. It's useless to tell me about your faults. Go to the castle tower and explain to the general and Luo Chen in person. Kujosera said coldly. Just think of it as father begging you this time. Just let me go. You don't need to do anything. Just open my handcuffs and leg irons. Kujosera pleaded. Isn't the grace of raising us in this life enough for you to open and let me go this time? Kujosera stopped. She looked at Kujosera coldly. Kujosera's eyes flashed with a glimmer of hope that he knew that Kujosera valued these favors the most. Don't be delusional. I won't open it for you. Kujosera didn't say much, and directly dragged Kujo Takayuki's collar and walked forward. Kujo Takayuki's words just now completely wiped out the last guilt in her heart towards Kujo Takayuki. The pedestrians on the road looked at this scene in surprise. Wasn't that the former Tenryo Bugyo? I heard that he was imprisoned for a serious crime, and he was escorted by General Kujo himself. However, just as they walked to a small path, countless people with evil eyes suddenly came from the side and surrounded Kujosera and Kujo Takayuki. The Fatui? Kujosera's face turned cold. Those weapons, equipment, and clothes were obviously from the Fatui. Go. The Fatui rushed up without saying a word. They wanted to kill Kujosera and take Kujo Takayuki away. Kujosera gritted her teeth, and weapons appeared in her hands. With so many people, she might not be able to resist. Ha ha. Kujo Sara, you asked for this. I gave you a chance. Kujo Takayuki laughed. However, he was not proud for a second or two, and suddenly his laughter got stuck in his throat. Dense golden spears flew in the sky, as if piercing through space. Advertisement almost instantly. All the fatui present were pierced and turned into blood mist. Before Kujo Sara could react, all the fatui had turned into blood mist, and the ground in front was stained red with blood. The sub-sky spear shattered the fatui and disappeared directly in the air, and with it also disappeared the last glimmer of Kujo Takayuki's hope. Lord Luo Chen. As soon as she saw this magical power, Jujo Sala knew that it was Luo Chen who made the move. She was shocked. As expected, Lord Luo Chen and the general had been paying attention. Jujo Sala glared at Jujo Takayuki and dragged him to the castle tower quickly, ignoring his pig-like screams. Inside the castle tower, the fatui? Luo Chen looked at the scene of Jujo Sala dragging Jujo Takayuki to the castle tower in a golden light curtain in front of him, and raised his eyebrows to look at Rosalind, who was rubbing his shoulders next to him. None of my business, Rosalind explained quickly. These are all the men of the scattered soldiers. My men are still staying in the hotel. Without my order, they will never dare to take action. And the badges on their chests show that they are under the command of the scattered soldiers. Don't be afraid. Luo Chen smiled. Now that she has been trained well, Rosalind is really well-behaved and has no temper in front of him. A cunning rabbit has 3 burrows. It seems that he has a deal with the scattered soldiers. Lei Dianjin looked at the screen, and his anger was rising. After a while, under the rapid drag of Kujo Sara, Kujo Takayuki was brought to the castle tower. Let them in, Luo Chen said. As the Aojia people went down, Kujo Sara pulled Kujo Takayuki in. Castle tower. Silence. Looking at the wailing Kujo Takayuki, Kujo Sara punched him hard in the stomach, making him unable to make a sound due to the pain. Kneel down. After pressing hard, Kujo Takayuki knelt on the ground 10 times. Kujo Takayuki, as a magistrate of the heaven, you have done so many things that are sorry to Inazuma and deceive the gods. Do you know your sins? Lei Dianjin asked coldly. I didn't do anything wrong to Inazuma. I just used the fools. At this point, Kujo Takayuki still argued, saying, with the general's divine power, what waves can the fools make? Look, I said what a dog can't change its eating habits. Luo Chen pointed at Kujo Takayuki in the audience and said, Zhen, there is no need to judge him anymore. So much nonsense. Since the charges have been established, let's execute him. Luo Chen looked at Kujo Takayuki and smiled and sentenced him. Kujo Takayuki, death penalty. Luo Chen. Kujo Takayuki glared at Luo Chen and wanted to say something, but Kujo Sara was quick and punched him in the mouth, and he couldn't say anything. Lei Dianjin and Luo Chen looked at Kujo Sara with approval, and then Luo Chen waved his hand gently and hung Kujo Takayuki in the air. Before his death, Hiragi Shinsuke was tortured by thousands of arrows piercing his heart. As for you, okay. You will taste the pain of bone erosion. Luo Chen flicked his hand lightly, and the power of death attached to Kujo Takayuki's legs. In his painful and horrified expression, it slowly decomposed and disappeared from his legs. Watching himself dissolve bit by bit, it was unimaginable pain both mentally and physically, but Kujo Takayuki deserved this kind of pain. Not long after, Kujo Takayuki's figure disappeared completely, as if he had never been in this world. The scourge is gone, waiting for the return of the Okuji people. It seems that the scenery of Inazuma is about to become very good. Luo Chen smiled and looked at Kujo Sara and said, From today on, Sara, you will take over the position of Tianling Bugyo. Me? Kujo Sara was stunned, looked at Luo Chen, and was about to refuse the pregnancy. Luo Chen interrupted Kujo Sara directly and said, I believe you can do it. For your beloved Inazuma, there is no one more suitable than you. Chapter 112. Luo Chen is right. Talents are in short supply at this stage. There is really no one more suitable than you for the position of Tianling Fengxing. Lei Dianjin said, You act first. If there is a suitable one in the future, we will consider it. After hearing what Luo Chen and Lei Dianjin said, Jujo Sara was silent for a moment, then nodded and said, Sara will not disappoint Lord Luo Chen and Lord General. Okay. Lei Dianjin nodded and seemed very satisfied. Then he directly drafted the appointment and dismissal documents and stamped them. You can take this first. He handed the document to Jujo Sara and said, I will take my leave. Jujo Sara bowed and turned to leave the castle tower. These things have come to an end. These termites can finally be pulled out. Lei Dianjin sighed and said, killing so many people, it seems that I have more things to do again. A bunch of trash, just kill them. Ye Shinsi said with a pursed lip, Zygong, do you have something to tell me? Luo Chen looked at Hu Zygong. She had been in a strange state these 2 days, and she always felt like she wanted to say something. Well, Hu Zygong nodded, stretched out her hand, and a purple ball of light appeared in front of everyone. What is this? Luo Chen asked in confusion. You may not believe it when I tell you. This is Hanasari, Gu Zygong said. Huh? Ye Shinsi was stunned and said, no, when Achen resurrected you, wasn't Hanasari you? That's right. Hu Zygong nodded and said, I am Hanasari, but Hanasari is not just me. In the hundreds of years since I became filthy, Hanasari carried my memory and consciousness, and also gave birth to her own consciousness. When Achen resurrected you, did he only use your consciousness to resurrect you? Ye Shinsi thought about it and understood. But this remnant is the consciousness of Hanasari? Yes, and Hanasari is very special. As an independent individual, she should still have my memories. Hu Zygong nodded and said, then she looked at Luo Chen and said, Achen, I want you to resurrect Hanasari. I have thought about it. After resurrecting Hanasari, let her be your exclusive witch. She, Eve, has my power and memory. Hu Zygong threw a coquettish eye and said, do you understand what I mean, Achen? You are a lecherous fox. Ye Shinsi rolled his eyes and looked at Luo Chen. Of course, I will see her consciousness. Luo Chen nodded and said, taking the purple light ball from Hu Zygong, Luo Chen felt it slightly, feeling her weak consciousness. It is indeed possible to resurrect, Luo Chen said, and it's very simple for me now. I don't even need the black abyss and white flower. The power of life and death in Luo Chen's hand wrapped around Hua Sanli's consciousness, and the powerful life force outlined a soft body, which slowly emerged in Luo Chen's arms. This body was different from Hu Zygong. She had long black hair and a beautiful face that was 70% similar to Hu Zygong, but less charming and more gentle than Hu Zygong. As the life force dissipated, the delicate body in Luo Chen's arms was like a piece of flawless jade, like a sleeping beauty. Advertisement, is this Hua Sanli? She looks different from you. I thought she was the same as you. Just like the general and the shadow. Ye Shinsi looked at Hua Sanli and said, Hua Sanli has her own consciousness and is an independent existence from me. It's good to be different from me. Zygong nodded and said, The beauty in his arms snorted softly, then opened her eyes, and her clear eyes seemed to contain stars. The moment she opened her eyes and saw Luo Chen, her eyes were full of attachment, and she said, Lord Luo Chen, watch you. Why does the atmosphere feel a little wrong? The three of Ye Shanzi looked at each other. Hu Zygong had just been resurrected and was not so attached to Luo Chen. Tongzi, come out and explain why Hua Sanli is so dependent on me. Luo Chen was a little surprised and called the system. Normal, as the counterpart of Hu Zygong, Hua Sanli, in addition to having Hu Zygong's memories and abilities, is mainly dominated by her own consciousness. The system explained. Hua Sanli's consciousness was born to fight against filth. She has never been exposed to anything other than filth. Her mind is pure. She has the memory of you resurrecting Hu Zygong, and this time you resurrected her, plus your deepest affection in Teyvat. Congratulations, Master. You have obtained 10 priestesses who can give everything for you. 666. Luo Chen shouted in his heart, good guys. Is this a win without doing anything? Luo Chen, Hua Sanli's voice brought Luo Chen back to his senses. He looked at Hua Sanli and said, Hua Sanli, you will be my exclusive little priestess in the future, do you know? Yeah. Hua Sanli nodded. Of course, she was very happy. Her mission to resist filth has been completed, and serving Luo Chen in the future is her mission. Hana Sanri, you come down first. Ye Shensi pulled Hua Sanri down from Luo Chen's arms, took out a set of shrine maiden clothes, and handed it to Hua Sanri. How could it be so naked? Although everyone present was a woman except Luo Chen. Hua Sanri and Kitsuzai Palace had almost the same figure, so she was very suitable for Kitsuzai Palace's shrine maiden clothes. Wearing the red and white shrine maiden clothes, her softness was 10 times more attractive. TSK. What a pretty little shrine maiden. Achen, you are blessed. Ye Shinsi looked at Hua Sanri and said, Son of God, don't tease me. Hua Sanri said, then walked to Luo Chen, pushed Rosalind aside, and gave Luo Chen a massage. Oh? Rosalind looked at this scene with a confused face. Good man. You pushed me away just to do this? You did it all. What should I do? But if you did it all, wouldn't it be much easier for me? Rosalind, come and massage my legs. Luo Chen didn't want Rosalind to be idle. He wanted to train Rosalind's obedience. These days of training made Rosalind much more obedient, not as arrogant as before, perhaps for the heart of God, or perhaps she didn't dare to be presumptuous in front of God. Rosalind thought she didn't have to work. It turned out that she was too happy, but she didn't dare to disobey Luo Chen's words at all, and walked to Luo Chen obediently, knelt down and gently massaged Luo Chen's legs. Well, this is life. Luo Chen was in a good mood. He killed a bunch of people who were harming the country and the people, and there was a beauty to accompany him. Chapter 113. It seems that the people of Heike Island don't like war. Pai Ming and Ing spent a day touring the entire Heike Island and asked many people for their opinions. Almost no one agreed with the war, especially now that Luo Chen continued to supply food. The people were even more unwilling to continue the war between Heike Island and the shogunate. With food that can fill their stomachs, people naturally don't want war. Ing shook her head and said, most people are afraid that the rebels will anger the shogunate and cut off their food supply again. Some people are also afraid of the power of the gods, afraid that they will be angered and come to give them a knife. Didn't you see that Heike Dayakami is still lying on Bayun Island? Didn't you see that Bayun Island was split into a narrow gap of Wushang blade? Heike Island can't withstand a knife. Let's go. Our last task is to meet the Heike Island's current human god priestess Coral Palace Shinhai, Ing said. After meeting her, we can go back and report to Luo Chen. Okay. Pai Ming nodded and pointed to the front and said, the front is Coral Palace. Let's go quickly. After walking for a while, Coral Palace came into view. Wow. The Coral Palace is so beautiful. I didn't expect that the Coral Palace is really built on shells and corals. Paimon exclaimed. Yes. Ing nodded. No wonder it's called the Coral Palace. The two walked all the way to the entrance of the Coral Palace and were stopped by the guarding rebel sergeant. Stop, who are you two? The rebel sergeant stopped Ing, looked at her suspiciously and said, what's the matter with coming to the Coral Palace? We are here to see Shinhai of the Coral Palace. Paimon explained quickly. The Coral Palace lady is very busy. What do you want to see her for? The sergeant asked. Paimon and Ing looked at each other and said truthfully, we are sent by Lord Tai Nuzongzizan to discuss some things with Heike Island leader Coral Palace Shinhai. Lord Tai Nuzongzizan? The sergeant's face changed drastically, and then he became alert. Who doesn't know about the resistance army of Lord Tai Nuzongzizan? The elite who suppressed them strongly, the new god of the shogunate. The power of the Lord can be known from the comrades who came back before. Hearing the two people in front of him claiming to be sent by Lord Tai Nuzongzizan, the sergeant did not dare to stop them and said, you two stay here and don't move. I will report it. Okay. Ing nodded and said. At this moment in Coral Palace Shinhai was worried. Recently, there were many voices in the resistance army demanding a new war, which made her worried and confused, and the sanctification of the land was aggravated. It really made her busy. At this time, there was a knock on the door, and Coral Palace Shinhai hurriedly said, please come in, Master Coral Palace. The sergeant got permission, pushed open the door, and came in. What's wrong? Is there anything? Coral Palace Shinhai asked. It's like this, Master Coral Palace. There are two people outside who claim to be sent by Tianyu Zongzizun and want to discuss something with you. Shishang said. Who are you talking about? Tianyu Zongzizun? Coral Palace Shinhai's face changed, and he quickly confirmed. Advertisement, yes. The sergeant nodded and said, why would he send someone? Coral Palace Shinhai thought of the extremely handsome figure in her mind, but she was always a little scared and afraid of the man. Please invite them in quickly. Forget it. Where are they? I'll go with you. Coral Palace Shinhai said hurriedly. Master Coral Palace, please come this way. The sergeant hurriedly went out with Coral Palace Shinhai. Outside Coral Palace, Ing and Pai Ming were bored and looking at the scenery around Coral Palace. Ing, why do I feel that the sergeant suddenly became nervous when he heard that we were sent by Luo Chen? Pai Ming asked puzzledly. I feel so too. Ing nodded and said. She could clearly feel that the sergeant's body tensed up when he heard the name of Tianyu Zongzizun. You don't think Luo Chen has done anything to them? Pai Ming guessed. But think about it. There are no gods on Heike Island. It is normal to be afraid of a god. Pai Ming. Just as Pai Ming was chattering, Ing called Pai Ming, and Pai Ming immediately shut up. It turned out that Coral Palace Shinhai had come in and out. Master Coral Palace, that's them. The sergeant said. Okay. Coral Palace Shinhai nodded, walked forward and greeted. Hello. I am Coral Palace Shinhai, the current human god priestess of Heike Island. Miss Shinhai, hello. I am Paiming. She is Ing. Paiming greeted hurriedly. I heard that you were sent by Tianyu Zongzhuzun. Coral Palace Shinhai looked at the two girls. She was a little surprised why Luo Chen sent two girls here.
Yes.
Ing nodded and said, we are here to confirm some things. After that, she took out the God Order. This is the God Order of Mingshan Grand Shrine. As a priestess of Heike Island, she naturally knows the God Order of Mingshan Grand Shrine. Coral Palace Shinhai said, Princess Bailu once told me that Tianyu Zongzhuzun is also the great god official of Mingshan Grand Shrine. You are indeed sent by Tianyu Zongzhuzun. Then both of you, please follow me. Shanhu Palace Shinhai confirmed the identities of the two people, and then took Ing and Paiming to the reception room. Please take a seat, both of you. After sitting down, Shanhu Palace Shinhai looked at the two people opposite and asked, I wonder what the Tianyu Zongzhuzun wants to discuss? Actually, it's nothing. Luo Chen wants to confirm how the evil eyes on your Heike Island are being handled. Paiming said. So it's this matter. Shanhu Palace Shinhai breathed a sigh of relief when she heard it. She thought that the voice of resistance to the shogunate here had reached the ears of Tianyu Zongzhuzun. Since it wasn't, she felt much more relieved. Please tell Tianyu Zongzhuzun to rest assured that Heike Island understands the harm of the evil eyes and will naturally strictly manage the evil eyes. Now 72 evil eyes have been confiscated and destroyed, Shanhu Palace Shinhai said. In that case, we know. Paiming nodded and said, Miss Shinhai, although it may be a bit too much, I still want to remind you that Luo Chen is very concerned about the evil eye. Well, it's best for you to handle the 10 evil eye matters carefully. Paiming knew that Hiragi Shinsuke died so tragically, and half of the reason was because of the evil eye. I know. Coral Palace Shinhai nodded. She dared not take this to heart. Regarding Luo Chen, she really dared not relax. Miss Shinhai, I have something to ask you. Ing suddenly said. Missing, you say? Coral Palace Shinhai nodded and said. We have been hearing along the way that the holy soil has caused the land to become barren and no longer grow. I want to know what the holy soil is. Ing looked at Coral Shinhai and said. Chapter 114. Sacred Soil. Coral Palace Shinhai was silent for a moment. She looked up at the two and explained. Sacred soil has existed on Heike Island for hundreds of years. Since Heike Island came from Yuanxia Palace, the power of Yuanxia Palace also affects the soil of Heike Island. So when sacred soil occurs, the power of Heike Island will make the land of Heike Island extremely barren, and crops cannot grow normally. We have to rely on the Heiji Imperial Spirit Festival and the power of the Great God to reverse the sacred soil of Heike Island. Coral Palace Shinhai sighed and said, I just don't know why the sacred soil is particularly serious this year. We must host the Heiji Imperial Spirit Festival as soon as possible. Otherwise, even if we rely on the shogunate to supply food, we will not be able to maintain a normal life. What is Yuanxia Palace? Ing asked. Our ancestors of Heike Island actually lived underground, that is, 247 today's Coral Palace underground, which we call Yuanxia Palace. In the past, Heike Great God took pity on us for not being able to see the sun, so he brought us up from Yuanxia Palace. Coral Palace Shinhai said. In Yuanxia Palace, there is a kind of coral called blood branch coral, which contains the power of the Great God and can reverse the holy soil. Coral Palace Shinhai said. But now Yuanxia Palace seems to have some changes, and the power inside seems to be a little riotous. Coral Palace Shinhai frowned and said, We haven't encountered such a situation for hundreds of years. Many people sent down this time suffered unexpected disasters. Obviously, Yuanxia Palace is a gathering place for dragon lizards, and the mine element is the most concentrated, but according to a sergeant who escaped, what they encountered was a fire element with strange power. Coral Palace Shinhai sighed and said, When this fire element explodes, in addition to being able to instantly devour ordinary people, even the original god with the eye of the fire element god will be infected by that strange power and become a monster that loses its mind and can only attack people. Monster? So dangerous. Paimon exclaimed. Yes, we have never seen such a situation, and it is not even recorded in the ancient books passed down from generation to generation. Coral Palace Shinhai nodded and said, Some of the soldiers who escaped were infected by this power, and they suddenly turned into monsters when they came back to recuperate. Coral Palace Shinhai said, But their strength is not strong, and they cannot compare with the power of the owner of the Eye of God, so they can be completely eliminated by burning them with fire after being killed. Oh my god. It's terrible, Paiming said fearfully. From now on, we dare not send anyone in, Coral Palace Shinhai said. But if we can't get the Blood Branch Coral, the land of Heike Island will become uninhabitable, which is no different from destroying Heike Island. Misfortunes never come alone. Coral Palace Shinhai shook his head and sighed. Ah, sorry, I made you laugh. Coral Palace Shinhai felt that complaining in front of outsiders seemed a little inappropriate. By the way, you too, if you are not in a hurry to leave, please allow me to entertain you too, Coral Palace Shinhai said. Hee, then I'll trouble Miss Shinhai. Paiming smiled when he heard that there was something delicious. Ing also nodded. She had worked for so long and hadn't eaten yet. Wait a moment, you two. I'll go make some arrangements. After saying this, Coral Palace Shinhai turned and left. Paiming, why don't we go down and take a look? The power that erodes people. Why do I feel it's a bit like the power of the abyss? Ing looked at Paiming and said, she still had to investigate the power of the abyss. It can erode people into monsters, which is very similar to the abyss. But it's very dangerous, Paiming said worriedly. Hearing what Miss Shinhai said, I'm a little scared. Let's go and take a look from a distance to see what the situation is. If it's really the power of the abyss, we don't have to be afraid, Ling said. Well, okay then. Although Paiming was afraid, she would definitely not let him go alone. So she nodded and said, then let's wait for Miss Shinhai to come back and talk to her. Okay. Ing nodded and said, advertisement. After a while, Coral Palace Shinhai made arrangements and came back. Miss Shinhai, we want to ask you for something, Ing said. What is it? Coral Palace Shinhai was slightly stunned and asked. About Yuansha Palace, we want to go in and observe it. Is it okay? Ing asked. Coral Palace Shinhai was silent for a moment and said, but it's too dangerous inside now. Let's go in and take a look. If there is any danger, we will leave as soon as possible, Ing said. Yes, Ing is very powerful. As a traveler who wants to travel around the 7 countries, she has repelled dragons and fought against demons. Paiming nodded and said, is that so? Coral Palace Shinhai pondered for a moment and said, okay then, please be sure to pay attention to safety. Great. Thank you, Miss Shinhai. Paiming said happily. You're welcome, Miss Ing. Since you are going to Yuansha Palace, I would like to entrust you with a task. Coral Palace Shinhai said, can you help us keep an eye on the Blood Branch Coral? If the situation allows, please bring us a Blood Branch Coral. Of course, if it is dangerous, please leave Yuansha Palace immediately. Coral Palace Shinhai added. Okay, we will do our best. Ing nodded and said, thank you very much, Ing, Paiming. Coral Palace Shinhai showed gratitude. If Ing and the others can really bring out the Blood Branch Coral, the crisis of Heike Island will be solved. When do you plan to go to Yuansha Palace? Coral Palace Shinhai asked. I will give you the map of Yuansha Palace and open the passage to Yuansha Palace. Ing and Paiming looked at each other, and Ing said, we still plan to go back to Inazuma first, and after telling Luo Chen about Heike Island, we will come on February 3rd, just in time to make some preparations. That's good. The situation in Yuansha Palace is critical now. If we can be fully prepared, it will greatly reduce the danger. Coral Palace Shinhai nodded and said, if you two need anything, please tell us directly. We will do our best to help you. Okay. Ing nodded and said, then you two, please follow me. Coral Palace Shinhai said, she has prepared a banquet. Heike Island is now short of supplies, and I apologize for the poor hospitality. Coral Palace Shinhai said, it's okay. Paiming waved his hand and said, for her, eating well is very important, but having something to eat is also good. P.S. She smiled in the flames, and she will be reborn in the flames. Chapter 115. After having dinner at the Coral Palace and the Coral Palace Heartsea, Ing and Paimong hurried to the Mingxian Taisha. Because she had experience when she came, Ing only took one day to reach the foot of Yingxiang Mountain. Yingxiang Mountain looked very beautiful in the early morning. Oh my god, do we still have to climb the mountain? Paimong looked at the high mountain and complained. She was tired after working all night. Yes. If we don't go up now, when will we go? Ing nodded and said, it's better to see Luo Chen earlier and meet the general earlier. Okay. Paimong pouted and was about to climb Yingxiang Mountain with Ing. Please stay, both of you. Just as the two were about to muster up their strength to climb Yingxiang Mountain, a gentle voice came from behind. Huh. The two looked back and saw a beautiful white-haired girl walking over. Who are you? Ing asked. Hello, I'm Kamisato Ayaka, Shinri Ayaka said. Just now I heard that you two are going to Mingshin Taisha to look for Luo Chen?
Yes.
Ing nodded and said, we have something to do with him. I see. Shinri Ayaka nodded and said, I am going to Mingshin Taisha too. Let's go together. Shinri Ayaka missed Luo Chen, and she hadn't seen him for several days. The girl couldn't bear the thought. It happened that there were not many things to do in the shrine today, so she took a small day off and prepared to go to Mingshin Taisha to look for brother Luo Chen. I didn't expect that just when I walked over, the girl in front of me and a little girl who could fly were actually discussing looking for Luo Chen. Regarding Luo Chen, the girl couldn't bear the thought and stepped forward to talk. Okay. Ing nodded and walked side by side with Kamisato Ayaka to the shrine magistrate. With Kamisato Ayaka's leadership, the three of them had a smooth journey and did not get lost, and soon arrived at the Narukami Taisha. Achen. Kamisato Ayaka greeted Juchi Xing, who was busy early in the morning. She had been to Narukami Taisha many times and had long known this little shrine maiden who was very close to Luo Chen. The two of them became close friends. Hey, Linghua, you came so early. Are you here to see Lord Luo Chen? Juchi Xing asked happily when she saw Kamisato Ayaka. Yeah. Kamisato Ayaka nodded and said, is brother Luo Chen still resting? I'm not sure anyway. He hasn't come out yet, so he should be resting. Juchi Xing said. Who are these two? Juchi Xing looked at Ing and Paimong and asked. Hello, I'm Paimong and she's Ing. Paimong quickly introduced himself. What a gentle shrine maiden sister. Hello, I'm Juchi Xing. Kyuki Yuki nodded and said. Ayuki, let's go find brother Luo Chen first. Shinli Linghua waved her hand and said. Okay. Juchi Xing nodded and said. You can have dinner at Mingshin Taisha in a while. Yeah. Shinli Linghua nodded and walked in with Yin and Paimong. Shinli Linghua walked to Luo Chen's door, knocked on the door gently and said, Brother Luo Chen? Advertisement soon. The door was opened. Luo Chen was wearing a loose nightgown with a wide neckline, revealing his strong chest and abdominal muscles, which made people feel extremely healthy. However, Luo Chen didn't care at all. After all, the girls in Mingshin Taisha admired him. It didn't matter if he exposed anything else. Linghua, you are here. Luo Chen saw Shinli Linghua and hugged her in his arms. Brother Luo Chen, I miss you. Shinli Linghua hugged Luo Chen's waist, buried her face in Luo Chen's arms, and glared at the aura on Luo Chen that made her obsessed. Wow. The noble Miss Linghua would also show this expression? Paiming and Ing just knew that Shinli Linghua was also Luo Chen's lover, and they were not surprised by their intimate actions. They were just curious that the noble Princess Bai Lu would actually act coquettishly in her lover's arms. The two of them were intimate for a while. Shinli Linghua thought of the outsiders and said shyly, Brother Luo Chen, there are two people who come to see you for something. Oh. Luo Chen had already seen Ing and the others, let go of Shinli Linghua, and asked with a smile. It seems that you have completed my commission? Yes. We are working day and night. Paiming nodded. Looking at Luo Chen's bare chest, he complained, Luo Chen, can you put on your clothes properly? Don't open your chest. Ing and I are not your lovers. Luo Chen was too lazy to pay attention to Paiming. He didn't expose anything. It was really, I won't let others see my chest muscles if they want to see it. Then tell me, what have you collected? Luo Chen took the three people to the small chair next to him and asked. Well, Ing nodded, and her eyes moved from Luo Chen with difficulty, move away from the chest muscles. Although she is a girl of unknown age, she has never seen the chest muscles of other boys except her brother. My brother is a thin dog. He is not as good-looking as Luo Chen's solid figure. Ying's face is red. She always feels that Luo Chen's figure has always attracted her eyes. Ing told Luo Chen the ideas of the people collected on Heike Island. Luo Chen nodded and seemed very satisfied. As long as the people are unwilling to start a war, Heike Island will not be able to make any big waves. It seems that it is time for the followers to discuss the compensation affairs of Heike Island. As for the evil eye, it is not beyond Luo Chen's thoughts. As long as the heart of the Coral Palace is not a fool, it will not be allowed to circulate. 380 You did a good job. Luo Chen nodded with satisfaction and said, It's really worthy of Ing and Paiming. Hee. Of course. Paiming said proudly. Luo Chen, since we have completed your commission, shouldn't you take us to see General Lei Dian? I heard that the general lives in the castle tower of Inazuma. Let's go quickly, Paiming said impatiently. Finally, he could meet the arrogant General Raiden. Ing also nodded. She couldn't wait to meet General Raiden. No need to go to the castle tower. The general you want to see is at the Narigami Taisha shrine right now. One Luo Chen shook his head and said, Huh. Ying and Paiming looked puzzled. Wait a moment. Luo Chen got up and walked into the house. Looking at Lei Dianying and General Raiden, who were resting with their eyes closed, he gently leaned over and kissed them on their cherry lips. Achen. Lei Dianying opened his eyes, looked at Luo Chen, and responded to him. The traveler from a foreign land wants to see you. You and the general should get up quickly, Luo Chen said softly. Okay. Lei Dianying nodded, stood up with the general, and changed clothes in front of Luo Chen without any disguise. So, the three of them walked out of Luo Chen's room in the astonishment of Ying and Paiming. Please subscribe to the full subscription. Chapter 116. Sister Ying, Sister General. Seeing this scene, unlike Ying and Paimong who were shocked, Kamisato Ayaka smiled and greeted the two thunder gods. Ayaka, you are here too? Lei Ying smiled, and General Raiden nodded. Are these two the thunder generals of Inazuma? There are actually two thunder gods of Inazuma? Paimong suddenly exclaimed. Wait, isn't that Luo Chen's room? Why did the two generals come out of Luo Chen's room? Could it be that General Raiden is also your lover? Paimong looked at Luo Chen and asked in disbelief. Luo Chen nodded and said, Why? I didn't see it, little Paimong. You have some brains. Bah, Paiming is very smart. Paiming said with disdain. Luo Chen, I didn't expect you, a man with thick eyebrows and big eyes, to be so philandering? No, I'm not philandering. I just want to give the girls who love me a warm home, Luo Chen said with a smile. They are all my wings. Wow, what you said is really irritating, Paiming said with his hands on his waist. You said it, right? Ying. Paiming called Ying, but Ying didn't say anything. Paiming looked over and found that Ying's face was red, and she lowered her head and didn't say a word. Just now, the two generals came out of Luo Chen's room. This early in the morning, except for Paiming, anyone with a normal mind would know that something was wrong. But, damn it, I knew Luo Chen was philandering, but I didn't expect him to play so philanderingly. He even let the two thunder gods punch together. Ying, you won't catch a cold from the rain, right? Paiming looked at Ying's blushing face and flew over with some worry. No. Ying shook her head and said, Okay, you guys chat with the generals. Luo Chen said, Correction, there are actually 3 generals. These 2 are the gods who have been in power for these years. Frog fun. 3 generals, exclamation point. Paimon was completely dumbfounded. Doesn't that mean there are 4 gods in the entire Inazuma? Good guy. How embarrassing for other countries. You guys chat, Luo Chen said, and walked to the sacred cherry tree with Xinli Linghua. Brother Luo Chen, tonight? I want to stay. Xinli Linghua looked at Luo Chen with spring water in her eyes, as if she had mustered up a lot of courage. Linghua is already 16 years old, and she is old enough to get married, Brother Luo Chen. Xinli Linghua looked at Luo Chen seriously and said, I envy Sister Shensi her 11. Why is Linghua so bold today? Luo Chen pinched Xinli Linghua's delicate face and smiled. Well? Kamisato Ayaka opened her beautiful eyes, her face flushed and said shyly, Actually, Sister Shensi told me these things a long time ago. I never had the courage to say it, but I also want to sleep with Brother Luo Chen at night. Kamisato Ayaka lowered her head and whispered, I really want to. Then tonight, baby, you stay? Luo Chen rubbed Kamisato Ayaka's little face and smiled. Okay, Kamisato Ayaka put her head on Luo Chen's shoulder and smiled happily. Advertisement, by the way. I heard that the Son of God has been busy with many things recently, and he always drags Huzagong and Hanasanri to find you. What are you doing? Luo Chen asked curiously. Sometimes I can't see you. This. Xinli Linghua waved her hand and said, Sister Xinli said that I can't tell you, and we are preparing for the conferred god ceremony. So mysterious? Baby, tell me, secretly, don't let the Son of God know. Luo Chen approached Xinli Linghua curiously and whispered, Listening to Luo Chen's voice, Xinli Linghua was a little intoxicated, but she promised the eightfold Son of God to keep it a secret, and she couldn't help it. Then, okay then. Xinli Linghua couldn't refuse Luo Chen. She gently leaned against Luo Chen's ear and whispered, Actually, Sister Xinli taught us the Taiping Kagura dance, and we will dance for you at the conferred god ceremony. Taiping Kagura dance? Luo Chen was surprised. Isn't that a dance dedicated to God? Oh, he is a god. Then it's okay. Who are you? Luo Chen asked. Well, Sister Shanzi, Sister Hua Sanli, me, Zhongguan and Qinli, Xinli Linghua said. Okay, you all come? I was wondering why I didn't find Xiao Gong when I went to look for her 2 days ago. Luo Chen said with sudden realization. We all want to present the most beautiful dance for you. So we will spend a lot of time learning. Xinli Linghua said seriously. Oh, my sister said we can't let Achen know. Let me see which little traitor leaked the secret. Ye Shanzi suddenly hugged Luo Chen from behind and wrapped Luo Chen with his soft body. It turned out to be the little traitor sister Linghua. Ye Shanzi looked at Xinli Linghua and said with a smirk, Woo! Sister Shanzi, I'm sorry. Xinli Linghua lowered her head and whispered after being caught by Ye Shanzi for leaking the secret. Since the secret has been leaked, little Linghua, you can accept the punishment from your sister. Ye Shanzi really likes this lovely girl. Okay, Shanzi baby. My Linghua baby is reluctant to hide it from me, Luo Chen said with a smile. Unlike you, you have to hide a dance from your husband? Humph. Ye Shanzi hummed, opened her mouth and gently bit Luo Chen's neck and said, Isn't it because I want to give you a surprise? In fact, I have long expected that no matter whether it is Xiaogong, Linghua, or Qinli, she will definitely not be able to hide it from you. Dears, after the conferred god ceremony, I will give you a grand wedding, Luo Chen said seriously. Really? Xunli, Li Zhao, Linghua was a little surprised. Ye Shanzi is not a mortal, so he naturally doesn't care about the procedures of mortals, but Xinli Linghua is a mortal girl after all. She has been looking forward to having a romantic wedding countless times. Of course, I will announce you to the world. Luo Chen nodded and said, After the conferred god ceremony, I want our wedding to be blessed by everyone. Woo woo. Xinli Linghua was very excited and shed tears. Why are you crying? Linghua. Luo Chen put his arm around Xinli Linghua's shoulders. I feel so happy. Xinli Linghua whispered. I am really happy to think that I can marry you. I have dreamed of it many times, and it is finally coming true. P.S. There must be a wedding, a grand wedding, legitimate. The Inazuma's is the Inazuma wedding, and the beauties from other countries will have the wedding of the corresponding country at that time. Hee hee. Chapter 117. In the cafeteria of Mingshan Taisha, Luo Chen and Ing sat opposite each other to eat. Ing, how did you feel about chatting with the general? Luo Chen asked with a smile. Ing thought for a while and said, I learned a lot from Ing, but I still don't have more news about my brother. But Kong and I have agreed that I will travel to the 7 countries and meet again at the end of the journey, Ing said seriously. Okay. Luo Chen nodded, his eyes deep. The end of the journey? Lord Luo Chen, eat this, Ing Chi said, picking up a bird egg for Luo Chen. By the way, Luo Chen, we have to go to Yuanxia Palace, Ing said suddenly. Oh, you are going to Yuanxia Palace? Luo Chen asked curiously. It seems that you have already known about the sacred soil of Heike Island? Yes, but according to what Xinhai of Coral Palace said, it seems that there have been changes in Yuanxia Palace. Ing nodded and said, It seems that a power similar to the Abyss has appeared. Abyss? Luo Chen frowned slightly and said, Tell me in detail. Okay. Ing nodded and said, Miss Xinhai said that for the Haiji Royal Spirit Festival, she has arranged more than 230 people to go to Yuanxia Palace to get blood branch coral. But now Yuanxia Palace has been eroded by the mysterious fire element power. This fire element, even people with the fire element gods, I cannot resist it. And it also has a very strange characteristic. It is said that people infected will become irrational monsters. I think this may be similar to the power of the Abyss. I want to investigate it. The power of the fire element that the fire element gods I cannot resist? And there are strange infection characteristics? Luo Chen frowned slightly. Why does it feel so familiar? Suddenly, Luo Chen slightly opened his eyes. Why does what you said sound so much like the collapse energy? Collapse energy? Ing was stunned and looked at Luo Chen in confusion. Even Pai Ming and Lei Dianying were confused. They have heard of elemental power, abyss power. Lei Dianying even knows the light world power, but she has never heard of collapse energy. Well, Luo Chen was silent for a moment and explained. Ing and the others know that I am a god from outside the world, and the power I am using now is the collapse energy. Huh. Luo Chen, you are also from outside the world? Pai Ming said in surprise. Pai Ming, listen to Luo Chen. It is a bit surprising to come from outside the world, but the focus now is on the collapse energy. It is difficult to explain the collapse energy. You can understand it as a superior energy that far exceeds the elemental force. It has a very magical power, but it is very dangerous, Luo Chen said. The collapse energy is very corrosive, especially to organisms. Once they can't withstand the erosion of the collapse energy, the organism will be transformed into a monster that only knows how to kill, Luo Chen said. We generally call the monsters produced by human infection as dead soldiers, and their strength is not strong. I use the collapse energy in my daily life, and I almost completely control the erosion ability of the collapse energy, so this situation will not happen, Luo Chen said. Only when the uncontrollable collapse energy suddenly appears in a certain area on a large scale and at a high energy level, we will call it a collapse outbreak. Advertisement: the damage caused by the Honkai explosion is very great, but logically speaking, Honkai energy should not appear in Teyvat. Luo Chen was a little puzzled. He had seen a hypothesis about Teyvat before that Teyvat was also a world on the tree of imaginary numbers, which was wrapped by the original people with something similar to eggshells, forming the false sky of Teyvat. If Honkai energy appears, there may be some trouble, Luo Chen said. What should we do then? Paimon looked at Ing worriedly and said, Ing, are we still going? It feels so dangerous, as Luo Chen said. Ing was silent. But don't worry too much. Luo Chen shook his head and said, it shouldn't be very strong, otherwise I would feel it. I don't feel it at all, which means that there should be only a small part of Honkai energy. But it's related to Inazuma's safety. I think I have to go there in person. Luo Chen looked at Ing and said, this time I will go to Kitsuzai Palace with you. Really? Paimon was overjoyed. With Luo Chen, it would definitely be safe. Luo Chen decided to go in person, but he still had some concerns. If it was really Honkai, it would prove that the border of Teyvat began to become unstable. Moreover, Luo Chen didn't know how adaptable Ing and the others were to Honkai. If they were infected and became dead soldiers, he would be heartbroken. After all, he was still planning to kill Ing. Achen, is it dangerous? Ye Shensi asked with some concern at this moment, and Lei Ying and the others also looked at Luo Chen with concern. If it is Honkai, then for me, it is safe as can't be safer. Luo Chen chuckled and said, because I am Honkai. So scary. Paimon was startled by Luo Chen's last sentence. You conspicuous bag. Luo Chen was completely broken by Paimon's words, and he grabbed Paimon and bullied her. But it was obvious that Paimon was used to being bullied, and she let Luo Chen bully her with a look of despair. Anyway, she couldn't escape Luo Chen's clutches. Knowing that Luo Chen was going to accompany her to Kitsuzai Palace, Ing seemed much more relaxed. After all, being with a god was the greatest sense of security. By the way, Luo Chen, do you have a solution to the holy soil transformation? Ing asked. The holy soil transformation is nothing more than the influence of the power of Kitsuzai Palace. It's very simple. If you erase Kitsuzai Palace, Shincho transformation will be completely solved. Luo Chen said lightly. Erase Kitsuzai Palace? Paimon broke free from Luo Chen's clutches, flew up and shook his head and said, Coral Palace Shinhai will definitely not agree. After all, she said that was where their ancestors were. I didn't say I would help them. Luo Chen drank a mouthful of porridge and said, the sins of Heike Island have not been repaid yet. Why should I care about the holy soil transformation? When they have repaid the sins committed by Heike Island, if they can come up with a bargaining chip that makes me excited, I may still help them. Luo Chen said. As for what bargaining chip can make Luo Chen excited, it is up to Luo Chen to decide. Okay. Ing and Paimon also nodded. After all, Luo Chen was the god of Inazuma, and the rebels were rebelling against the shogunate after all. Naturally, they would not persuade Luo Chen to show mercy like a saint. Let's eat. After dinner, we will go to Kitsuzai Palace, Luo Chen said. He wanted to see what caused the collapse if it was really a collapse. Chapter 118. After breakfast, Luo Chen took Ing and Pai Ming to Heike Island. It takes too much time to travel. Shall I take you there by flying? Luo Chen looked at Ing and asked. Yeah. Ing nodded. With Ying's consent, Luo Chen embraced Ying's slender waist, grabbed Pai Ming into his arms, looked at a certain place. A mysterious smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and turned into a stream of light and flew to Heike Island. In the deep forest, a figure gnashed his teeth and watched Luo Chen hugging Ing and flying away. Luo Chen, you are so fast. Pai Ming was in Luo Chen's arms, holding his little crown tightly, and shouted loudly. Luo Chen was speechless. He didn't want to care about this hateful little guy at all. Ing seemed to have thought of something, and a blush appeared on her face. Under Luo Chen's high-speed flight, he soon arrived at Heike Island. The soldiers stationed at the Coral Palace were startled when he descended from the sky with Ying and Pai Ming. When they saw Luo Chen's face, the rebels who had participated in the battle and been suppressed by Luo Chen recognized this face, and their faces changed drastically. Tian Yu Zhong Zhu Zun. In an instant, the panic spread among the soldiers. Luo Chen did not speak, and walked towards the Coral Palace with Ying and Pai Ming. No soldier dared to stop him. Pushing open the door of the Coral Palace, Luo Chen walked in with Ying, used the power of space to sense the office where the Coral Palace was located, and walked directly over. Coral Palace Shinhai was handling the government affairs at hand. There was a list of people who supported the war in the file. They encouraged the rebels to continue fighting the shogunate every day, which made Coral Palace Shinhai very distressed. The key point was that these people still had evil eyes in their hands. Suddenly, the door was pushed open, and Coral Palace Shinhai frowned and looked over. No one in the Coral Palace would trespass into her office. When she saw the face of the person coming, the face of Coral Palace Shinhai changed drastically. It was Luo Chen. Behind him was Ying and Pai Ming. Coral Palace Shinhai stood up quickly, put the list in her hand under many documents, and smiled. Lord Luo Chen, why did you come in person? I heard from Ying that there was a change in Yuanxia Palace. Luo Chen said, I will accompany Ying to Yuanxia Palace this time. Coral Palace Shinhai looked at Ying, and Ying nodded, which made Coral Palace Shinhai happy. If Luo Chen followed, Ying would have a great chance to bring back the Blood Branch Coral. But the next moment, her face turned pale again, and the happiness in her heart turned into a little panic. Because Luo Chen just waved his hand, the document and list she had just read flew into Luo Chen's hands. Lord Luo Chen. Coral Palace Shinhai was about to explain something, but was interrupted by Luo Chen. Shoo. Luo Chen signaled Coral Palace Shinhai to shut up, and he was looking through the mission report and list with interest. What's wrong? Ying looked at Luo Chen curiously. TSK, I remember I was really kind enough to let Heike Island go, right? I asked the society executive to continue to provide you with affordable food and daily necessities. I have done my best, right? Luo Chen looked at the Coral Palace Heart Sea and asked, then handed the document in his hand to Ying. Ying looked a little unhappy after reading the list. Now everyone is working hard for peace, but Heike Island is actually... Advertisement, Lord Luo Chen, please listen to my explanation. Coral Palace Shinhai wanted to explain. No need to explain. Luo Chen waved his hand to interrupt Coral Palace Shinhai, threw the list and documents to Coral Palace Shinhai and said, I will give you a choice now. Kill all the people on this list for me, and after Ying and I come out of Yuanxia Palace, I want to see all the heads of these people. Don't try to deceive the gods. If I come out and see that you can't do it or one person is missing, then Heike Island will have no need to exist. Luo Chen said lightly, I don't think you want to witness my power. I have given you many opportunities to change, but you have disappointed me again and again. Luo Chen said coldly. Coral Palace Shinhai's face was pale, and he looked at Yin for help. Ying shrugged helplessly. Not to mention that she had no status to manage the family affairs of Inazuma. Even if she had this status, she would not help Heike Island to oppose Luo Chen. After all, Ying has always been in contact with Luo Chen. In her heart, Luo Chen's status is now much higher than Hai Chi Dao. Hashtag FL plus F equals Pai Ming and Ying have the same idea. Go and open the passage to Yuanxia Palace for us. Without giving Coral Palace Shinhai time to think, Luo Chen directly ordered. Yes, Lord Luo Chen. Coral Palace Shinhai nodded in despair and said, Lord Luo Chen, Ying, Pai Ming, please come this way. Walking to the huge vortex in front of Coral Palace Shinhai's hand emitted a blue energy and shot into the vortex. In an instant, a huge vortex door opened. Let's go, Ying. Luo Chen embraced Ying and Pai Ming, jumped down directly, and his figure disappeared in an instant. Seeing the three people entering Yuanxia Palace, Coral Palace Shinhai sighed. How could she be so cruel to kill these people? But if she didn't kill them, Coral Palace Shinhai was really afraid that Luo Chen would destroy Heike Island. It should be easy for a god as famous as General Lei Dian to destroy Heike Island, right? She knew that Luo Chen was forcing her to make a choice, and she also knew that she didn't dare to bet whether Luo Chen would destroy Haishin Island. After thinking for a long time, Coral Palace Shinhai still made up her mind to kill. She couldn't gamble with the fate of the entire Heike Island, so she called the sergeant. Master Coral Palace. The sergeant saluted. Take your people and go with me to arrest everyone on this list. Coral Palace Shinhai decided to do it herself. If someone let one go because of selfishness, the entire Heike Island would be finished. The sergeant asked in confusion. What mistakes did they make? Intent to rebel, provoke war, and privately keep the evil eye are all capital crimes. Coral Palace Shinhai opened his eyes and said indifferently, "Yes." The sergeant shuddered when he saw Coral Palace Shinhai's appearance for the first time. He immediately summoned dozens of soldiers, and even Wu Lang came when he heard the news. "Master Coral Palace, do they have to convict him of such a serious crime? Do they have to kill him?" Wu Lang was anxious and wanted to plead for mercy. "Wu Lang, there is no room for negotiation." Coral Palace Shinhai looked at Wu Lang calmly and said, I know." Wu Lang heard Coral Palace Shinhai's determination and said no more. He was determined to implement every decision of Coral Palace Shinhai. P.S. Is this a decisive killing? Without saying anything, Shinhai was directly asked to kill all these people. The heads were placed there. Is it fast enough? Don't talk about killing Heike Island with a knife. If even innocent people are killed, it will really lose humanity. I said that ordinary people of Heike Island are allowed to survive. Chapter 119. In the Yuanxiao Palace, a golden light descended from the sky at a high speed. Luo Chen held Ying and Pai Ming and landed gently on the ground. Looking around, the entire Yuanxiao Palace was silent, and there was no monster at all. "It's so hot." Ying and Pai Ming frowned. Now the air in the Yuanxiao Palace was filled with a burning breath. "It's really the breath of collapse." Feeling the free collapse energy in the air, Luo Chen said softly. Then he looked at Ying and Pai Ming and asked, "Are you okay?" "It's okay. I just feel so hot." Ying and Pai Ming shook their heads, and the symptoms of collapse energy erosion did not appear. "That's good." Luo Chen nodded. It seems that the low concentration of collapse energy should have no effect on Ying and Pai Ming. "Luo Chen, I plan to go find Blood Branch Coral." Holding the map that Coral Palace Shinhai had just given him, Ying said, 540, and investigate the surrounding area by the way. "Okay, be careful." Luo Chen nodded and said, "If you feel uncomfortable, hold the crystal I gave you before immediately. Also, you must avoid the purple energy, which is the high concentration of Honkai energy." "I'm afraid you can't stand it," Luo Chen said. "Okay." Ying nodded and left with Pai Ming and the others. Luo Chen was not worried. After all, he was in Yuanxiao Palace. Even if something happened, he could rush over immediately. Besides, with the crystal he gave to Ying, he was not afraid that Ying would be affected. Luo Chen slowly rose into the air and began to investigate around the entire Yuanxiao Palace. Soon after, Luo Chen sensed that a very high concentration of Honkai energy appeared somewhere, which was actually on the Great Sun Carriage. A fireball burning with blazing flames appeared at the highest point of the Great Sun Carriage, like a burning small sun. With the fireball appeared, the entire Yuanxiao Palace trembled, and in an instant, a huge amount of collapse energy instantly enveloped the entire Yuanxiao Palace. The purple-red breath exuded extremely ominous information. A very high collapse energy level. Luo Chen's face changed. If this collapse energy level is placed in the collapse, it is estimated that a Hershers can be born. Luo Chen naturally ignored this level of collapse energy, but it happened to be the same for Ying below the Sun Guard. However, Ying reacted very quickly. Seeing the purple energy spreading, Ying shouted loudly, "Paimon, take out the crystal stone that Luo Chen gave us." With the golden crystal in his hand, a golden energy enveloped the two people, and the collapse energy washed over, and the two were not affected at all. Luo Chen's figure appeared next to Ying. Seeing that the two were fine, he nodded and said, "Don't move again. The concentration of collapse energy will be higher if you go forward. For safety reasons, stay away and I will go to see." "Okay. You also pay attention to safety." Ying nodded. She knew that this was not something she could participate in, and said. Luo Chen nodded, soared into the sky and flew directly to the sun carriage. As Luo Chen approached, the collapse energy became higher and higher, and in the hot air there was actually the energy of the ruler of the void, which was the same as his. Luo Chen thought of something, and he increased his flying speed, and in an instant he was next to the fireball. As expected, Luo Chen's eyes showed great shock. It was the figure he was most familiar with a head of fiery red hair scattered and scattered. Tall and plump, wearing a broken armor that did not belong to Tawashi, the body had a kind of battle-damaged beauty. Jizi? Wuliangta Jizi. Luo Chen's breathing became rapid. He actually saw Wuliangta Jizi in this place. Advertisement Luo Chen didn't know how to describe his feelings at the moment. Probably like a character that he liked very much. Knowing that she was dead, her soul and body were gone, and she didn't even have a chance of resurrection, she suddenly appeared in front of him intact, the kind of joy. Luo Chen looked at Jizi lying quietly in the flames. Jizi was sleeping in the flames and Honkai energy. The power of Honkai eroded her whole body. Purple cracks were all over her body, which looked extremely scary but also distressing. The true Red Knight armor on her body was already in tatters, and the plague gem in the middle of the armor had disappeared. The flames continued to burn her broken body, but in this flame, her painful face in sleep still had a strong smile, as if she was glad that she saved Kiana, or laughing at the incompetence of Honkai. Luo Chen entered the Herrscher's form and slowly walked into the flames. The power of the Herrschers of the sky continued to offset the power of the flames and absorb the Honkai energy around her. As the Honkai energy was absorbed by Luo Chen, Jizi's painful face seemed to ease a lot. Ding detected that the master absorbed a large amount of Honkai energy, met Himiko of the Infinite Tower, unlocked the SSS-level Herrschers of the Void template, unlocked the Herrschers of the Flame Core, A-level Herrschers of the Godly Meteorite Sword Surtur. The system's voice sounded in Luo Chen's mind. The Herrschers of the Void in its complete form. From this moment on, Luo Chen is the complete Herrschers of the Void, enough to dominate the entire world of Teyvat. Luo Chen slowly reached out and touched Himiko's face. There was still high temperature on her face that was eroded by Honkai energy. Not bad. There is still a little breath of life. Feeling Himiko still with a breath of life left, Luo Chen breathed a sigh of relief. The powerful life force instantly enveloped Jizi, and the collapse energy was instantly dispelled, and then Luo Chen absorbed it into the imaginary space. As the collapse energy was removed from Jizi's body, her skin returned to its former whiteness, and the power of life and death continued to restore Jizi's broken body. So, Jizi, be reborn from the flames. Your journey is not over. Let our journey start again from now on. Luo Chen murmured. He wanted to keep Wuliang to Jizi by his side. You know, his favorite character in the collapse of the third is Jizi. In the last in the class, Himiko Infinite Tower relied only on the armor of the true Crimson Knight to fight against the powerful ruler of the Void with her mortal body. Could it be that after Himiko saved Kiana, she fell into the imaginary space and fell into Teyvat by chance? Luo Chen thought. Master, it is also very likely that because of your power to communicate with the imaginary 3.4 space, Himiko Infinite Tower was guided by your power to Teyvat. The system explained. It just so happens that the Abyss Palace is the weak point of Teyvat. I see. Luo Chen nodded. It turned out to be like this, his arrival. It seems that many things have changed. Luo Chen looked around, and countless space wormholes appeared in every corner of the Yuanxiao Palace, absorbing all the collapse energy of the entire Yuanxiao Palace. It is not yet time for Teyvat to collapse. If the collapse energy continues to exist in this world and attracts the attention of the tree, then the world of Teyvat may be directly destroyed. P.S. The author likes Jizi too much, so the author will arrange a lot of things for Jizi, but don't worry, every girl in the protagonist will have her own power, and there will be no favoritism. Chapter 120. As all the collapse energy was completely absorbed by Luo Chen, the power of life and death also completely restored the injuries of Wuliang to Himiko. With a light hum, Luo Chen looked down at Himiko in his arms and saw her slowly open her golden eyes and murmured, "Am I dead?" Without getting an answer, what came into Himiko's eyes was a man with white hair and golden eyes, which immediately brought back her bad memories. Looking at the flowing wings floating behind Luo Chen, Himiko's face changed drastically and she struggled. Now she has no power of the true Red Knight, and she can't fight the Herrschers of the Void at all. She is a little confused now. Didn't she just save Kiana and successfully suppress her Herrschers of the prison form? How come there are 10 Herrschers of the Void after 10 eyes open? It's still a personality. Wuliang to Himiko, we are not enemies. Luo Chen said. I am Luo Chen. This world is not your original world. Although I am also a Herrschers of the Void, I am not the one you know. Luo Chen said. 04 what? Hearing Luo Chen's words, Wuliang to Himiko was stunned. She looked at Luo Chen, frowned and asked, How do you know my name? Where's this place? You are indeed the Herrschers of the Void. This world is not your world, and this world has not collapsed. Luo Chen smiled. You fell into the imaginary space after fighting with Kiana, and were guided to this world by my power. Obviously, I found you and saved you, Luo Chen said. Wuliang to Himiko was silent. She tried to accept everything in front of her. Suddenly she raised her head and asked again, Why do you know our affairs so clearly? And if there is no collapse, Why are you the Hershers of the Void? I have observed your world, and I know all your future and past. Luo Chen smiled. I came to this world by chance, and the power of the Hershers of the Void is just one of my many powers. For the rest, I will find time to talk to you. But now, let's go down first. Luo Chen said. My friends are still waiting for me? Yeah. Himiko nodded. She was digesting this shocking news. Who would understand? She woke up to another world. Holding Himiko, he descended rapidly from the great sun carriage and soon arrived beside Ing and Paimon. Wow, Luo Chen, you are back? Paimon flew up happily, looking at Himiko in his arms and asked curiously, Eh? Who is she? Hello, my name is Himiko, just call me Himiko. Himiko came down from Luo Chen's arms and introduced herself. Hello, I am Paimon, and this is my best friend Ing. Paimon greeted happily. It's a beautiful big sister. Luo Chen, are you okay? The explosion of the collapse energy just now scared me. Ing looked at Luo Chen and asked, It's okay. I have absorbed all the Honkai energy. Luo Chen looked at Wuliangta Himiko and smiled. Himiko is the culprit. Advertisement. Sorry. Wuliangta Himiko whispered. She also knew that it was her arrival that brought a lot of Honkai energy. I have solved it. You don't have to blame yourself too much. Luo Chen said. Thank you. Wuliangta Himiko looked at Luo Chen with a little gratitude. Since it's okay, then Paimon and I will go to find the blood branch coral first. Ing looked at Luo Chen and said, Do you want to go back first? We'll wait for you here. We'll go back together later. Luo Chen said. Okay. Ing nodded and took Paimon away. Okay, let's talk about it too. What do you want to know? Luo Chen snapped his fingers, and 2 chairs appeared next to the 2 of them. Just now you said that you know the past and future of my world? Wuliangta Himiko asked. Then I want to know what the future of Kiana and the others is like? Luo Chen looked at Wuliangta Himiko. At this time, the first thing he wanted to ask was Kiana and the others. You can rest assured that although they have experienced many difficulties, they will defeat the collapse. Although the ending is not perfect, Luo Chen said, Kiana will become the Hershers of the End in the future, sealing all the collapse on the moon, and she will guard the moon alone. Raiden, Mei, and Bronya will continue to fight for humanity and the destiny, and Otto Apocalypse will erase his own existence. Teresa becomes the new bishop of the undead. Kiana. She has grown up, thinking of that innocent and kind little girl, who will become the Hershers of the End for mankind in the future and guard the moon alone. Himiko Wuliangta felt very distressed. If that were the case, she, who always liked to be lively, would definitely be very lonely. As her teacher, you are very successful. If it weren't for your sacrifice, Kiana wouldn't have grown so fast. Luo Chen said, You are a qualified teacher? Really? I thought I was an incompetent teacher. Himiko Wuliangta smiled and said, After all, Kiana has never passed the cultural courses. Then it's not your fault. Luo Chen laughed and said, There's nothing we can do. After all, Kiana is a paramecium. Even if she becomes the Hershers of the End in the future, she will still be a B-level Valkyrie in the Valkyrie of Destiny because she failed the cultural subjects. Ha ha ha. Jeezy also laughed. Paramecium. This 183 description is really suitable. Kiana really falls asleep in class, is more active than anyone else after class, and eats more actively than anyone else. Laughing, Wuliangta Jeezy's eyes moistened, and her voice became smaller. I really want to see her again. Wuliangta Jeezy knew that she came to this world and wanted to go back, which was probably impossible. She would never see Kiana and the others again in this life. Jeezy, your duty has been completed. You can enjoy life and have a good rest. Luo Chen looked at Wuliangta Jeezy and said gently, This world has not collapsed, so I want to invite you to go with me to this world to see the beautiful scenery and culture. Believe me, this world will not disappoint you. Luo Chen said confidently. He had just come to this world, and his goal might not be clear, but now he already knew it. When he came to this world, in addition to the beauty accompanying him, he would also choose to save this world that was about to break. For the people he loved and the people who loved him, he would also change 10 stories that were once imperfect. P.S. In addition to resurrecting and returning to the end, and having the great compassion Tree King and others as wives, there must also be 5 yakshas. After all, Ingda Vanin is also a wife. Not just beauties, the protagonist will change the stories that can be changed. Because this is too easy for the current protagonist. Chapter 121. Wuliangta Himiko looked at Luo Chen in front of her. She could feel his sincerity and seriousness. After thinking for a moment, she smiled and stretched out her hand and said, "Then I will teach you more in the future, Luo Chen." "Okay." Luo Chen smiled and stretched out his hand, holding her jade-like hand. With a thought, the core of the Hershers of Flame appeared in Woolyankta Himiko's hand. Woolyankta Himiko felt a warm thing in her hand. She looked at it, and a beautiful red gem appeared in her hand. "What is this?" Woolyankta Himiko's artificial stigma was also destroyed by Luo Chen's life and death power. Now that she has no power, she naturally cannot sense the collapse energy. Luo Chen, giving a beautiful gem to a lady just after meeting her is a bad man's act. Woolyankta Himiko laughed, but she still held the gem. She once knew that her life was not long, and there were too few excellent men in the collapse world. She had never found a man, so she was still an old girl and wanted to experience love in this world. Luo Chen is handsome, and he seems to be a gentle person after getting to know him. He is also very powerful. If she gets to know him more, she would like to try it. Although I really want to say that I am a bad man, Jeezy, this gem is the core of the pseudo-Hersher. Luo Chen pouted and said, "I just repaired your true red knight armor and changed the way the core is embedded to your own energy supply. This gem will make you a pseudo-Hersher, although it is not as powerful as a real Hersher's." Woolyankta Himiko was stunned, and she said, "Can I not accept becoming a Hersher's?" To be honest, she has been fighting against Honkai and the Hershers all her life. She can't accept it. "No, you have already accepted my gem." Luo Chen smiled and stretched out his hand, pressing the pseudo-Hersher core in her hand directly on her chest. "Well, not a gentleman." Woolyankta Himiko felt the warmth on her chest. Her face flushed slightly, and she said coquettishly, feeling the surging power in her body, Himiko Infinite Tower slightly activated the Crimson Knight. The powerful power exploded in Himiko Infinite Tower's body, and the flames burned and twisted the air. "Not bad." Luo Chen nodded with satisfaction. Although Himiko Infinite Tower is only an A-level pseudo-Hersher, with the bonus of the Crimson Knight and the blessing of the Divine Meteorite Sword Surtur, she can burst out with power that can surpass ordinary demons, surpassing S level, not SS. After all, it is a pseudo-Hersher, not a real plague gem. Fiske, I didn't expect that I would also be a Hersher's. Himiko Infinite Tower lamented the impermanence of fate. She fought against the collapse all her life, and finally became a Hersher's. Teyvat is not an ordinary world. There are also extraordinary powers here. If you don't have power, I won't worry about you, Luo Chen said. Besides, Himiko, power is not right or wrong. It depends on the person who uses it. Luo Chen smiled and said, "You have also trained many Hershers, and they all fight for humanity." Woolyankta Himiko looked at Luo Chen with some confusion. "Kiana, first became the Hershers of the Void, then inherited your will and the hope of mankind, became the Hershers of the Fire and later, passed the test and became the new generation of the Hershers of the End." Advertisement, Raiden May, first became the third Hershers of Thunder, then met the Hershers of the Origin, inherited her power and became the new Hershers of the Origin. Bronya, the Hershers of Reason, later became the Hershers of Truth. Seal gained the power of the sea and became the Hershers of Life and Death. Fu Hua became a Hershers of Knowledge by accident. They are all Hershers, but they have always fought for humanity and are great and strong warriors. Luo Chen smiled and said, "So, even the power of Hershers cannot erode their firm hearts. They all became Hershers?" Woolyankta Himiko smacked her lips. "Good guy. Their Saint Freya has become a gathering place for Hershers, right? But, Himiko, your power does not come from the collapse, but from me. If you accept this power, you will never be able to leave me again," Jiang Chun said with a smirk. "Okay." Woolyankta Himiko would not care. She looked at Luo Chen and raised her eyebrows and said, "I didn't plan to leave you anyway." Luo Chen was stunned and looked at Woolyankta Himiko. She smiled and said, "In an unknown world, I have someone to rely on. I think I am happy. But, Mr. Luo Chen, the domineering one, can you tell me how many lovers and partners you have?" Woolyankta Himiko asked with a smile. Luo Chen was silent for a moment, and then confessed, "In fact, my lovers think I am very fickle. I have many lovers. I will take you to meet them." "It is true," Woolyankta Jeezy said with an expression of true. "From the expression of the little girl named Ing just now, I can see that she should also like you a little. But Mr. Luo Chen, if I say that I can't accept so many beauties together, will you let me go?" Woolyankta Jeezy looked at Luo Chen, and asked with a smile. Sorry, I can promise you many things, but this one, I can't. Luo Chen approached Wooliangta Jizi and said seriously, It's a pity, Jizi, you can't escape from my arms. You are too domineering. Don't you even give me a choice? Wooliangta Jizi rolled her eyes at Luo Chen. Indeed. Luo Chen nodded and said, Okay, I don't expect to escape. Wooliangta Himiko said with a smile, But before that, please stay with me and take me to see this world, okay? I'm happy to do so. Luo Chen smiled. He didn't expect Wooliangta Himiko to accept it so quickly. It was a pleasant surprise. Oh, I forgot. I have a gift for you. Zhao Qianhao, Luo Chen suddenly thought of the godly sword Sertel. He already had the key of nothingness, eternal tribulation, and black abyss white flower. He didn't need this thing, so he might as well give it to Himiko directly. A fiery red giant sword appeared in Luo Chen's hand, and a high-heat flame was burning on the blade. Godly sword. Wooliangta Himiko's eyes widened. Didn't it break when fighting with the ruler of the void? How about it? Surprise? Luo Chen said. Of course. Wooliangta Himiko took Sertel from Luo Chen. Sure enough, it was still familiar. Thank you, Luo Chen. Murata Himiko looked at the man in front of her tenderly. Although she had just met him not long ago, she felt that he seemed to be omnipotent. Murata Himiko had never felt this kind of feeling in her life, but it felt quite good. P.S. Woohoo, Himiko, my Himiko, please subscribe to all the subscriptions. Chapter 122. Just as the atmosphere between the two people was heating up rapidly, there was a tremor underground, accompanied by the roar of the dragon lizard. It seems that your girlfriend is in trouble, Wooliangta Himiko said with a smile. Let's go and see. Ing is not my lover for the time being. Luo Chen waved his hand and said, Let's go. At this moment, Ing was holding the woofing sword, panting and looking at the dragon lizard in front of her. There were purple-red lines on the dragon lizard's body, and it exuded the breath of the collapse energy that Luo Chen had mentioned before. Under the strengthening of the collapse energy, the two dragon lizards became very large, and the thunder and water balls spewed out were also mixed with extremely strong corrosiveness. So Ing did not dare to take it head-on, and had to dodge in embarrassment. Dang dang, when Ing dodged, she found the right time and stabbed the dragon lizard with the sword mixed with thunder. Ying's face changed, and she retreated quickly. The powerful recoil force made her hand hurt, and the woofing sword was also covered with cracks, as if it would break in the next moment. On the other hand, the dragon lizard was hit by Ying's sword, but it was not hurt at all, and there was not even a white spot on the armor. What kind of monster is this? Ing was shocked. She had never encountered such a strange thing. It's a Honkai beast. No, it's not at the level of Honkai beast, but it is constantly evolving. Wooliangta Himiko could see it clearly in the hole above. 587 exclaimed. Oh, there are actually two fish that escaped the net? Luo Chen saw these two dragon lizards. They had too little Honkai energy, and they were hiding in the water and underground, so he didn't notice them. Ing has no experience in fighting Honkai beasts. Leave it to me. Wooliangta Himiko drew out the god meteorite sword and said, This level is just a warm-up for me. Okay. Luo Chen nodded and said, This half-baked Honkai beast that can't even be considered a complete body. To be honest, Wooliangta Himiko can easily kill it. In fact, Ying's strength is enough to beat this half-baked guy, but unfortunately she is too stupid and always attacks the hardest part of the dragon lizard. Ying's fighting style is really reckless. Without saying a word, she goes up to fight like an iron-headed kid, regardless of whether she can beat him or not. Ing, what should I do? Seeing Ing struggling on the field, Paimon was a little anxious. Ing, back off. A loud shout sounded from the sky. Ing quickly backed off after hearing it, and looked up, only to see Wooliangta Himiko holding a big sword falling quickly from the sky, with the big sword in her hand burning with flames. The big sword directly split the ice element dragon lizard in half with a terrifying impact force, and was directly turned into ashes by the flames. When Wooliangta Himiko landed, the powerful impact force made the small stone platform tremble. Wooliangta Himiko, who landed, did not hesitate at all, holding the Shinyun sword and rushing forward quickly, and the flames turned into a beautiful arc in the air. The flames burn everything. The divine meteorite sword, with a flame that could burn everything, directly beheaded the dragon lizard, and the powerful flame completely burned the entire dragon lizard's body. Great, great. Ing looked at the monster that she had difficulty dealing with and was killed by Wooliangta Jizi's two swords, and couldn't help but say blankly, Jizi has been fighting against Honkai beasts all her life, so this little Kara is naturally nothing. Luo Chen's voice sounded behind the two of them. Wow. Paimeng was startled, and the two hurriedly looked back, and it was indeed Luo Chen. Why are you walking without making any sound? I'm scared to death. Paimeng patted his chest and pouted. Advertisement Ing also nodded in agreement. Is this the blood branch coral you want? Wooliangta Himiko walked to the middle of the stone platform, where a blood-red coral branch had just fallen. After picking it up, Wooliangta Himiko walked over and handed it to Ing. Yes. Thank you, Sister Jizi. Ing nodded and said, Oh, what a well-behaved little girl. Wooliangta Himiko was overjoyed when Ing called her sister. That guy Kiana kept calling her aunt. Damn, is she that old? Luo Chen looked at the two of them with strange eyes. He didn't know how old Ing really was. Jizi should be considered a junior in front of her. Ing, how old are you this year? Can you tell me? Luo Chen leaned over and whispered in Ying's ear. No. Ing said crisply, bad guy. Don't you know you can't ask a woman's age? Just look at her appearance, and you can tell she's always 18 years old. Okay. Luo Chen shrugged. The immortal species is different from the short-lived species. Age has no meaning, because the immortals don't need to remember their age. Didn't you see that even Ganyu, who was raised by the true Lord Luyun Jeffing, didn't care about the true Lord Guchen Langshur becoming a ping? Age is not a measure of the immortal species. It's been a long time, Luo Chen said. Since Ing has also got the blood branch coral, let's prepare to go back. Jizi, like me, come to Inazuma. Luo Chen invited. Okay. Wooliangta Himiko nodded and said, I've said. I'll follow you wherever you are in the future. Wow. What happened between these two just now? Paimon whispered. I feel like Sister Jizi has also been attracted by Luo Chen. Is this guy so charming? Who said it wasn't? Looking at Wooliangta Himiko, Ing felt inexplicably unhappy. They have only known each other for such a short time. How can they be so close? Luo Chen and I have known each other for such a long time, but we are not so close. It was obviously me who came first. Oh, Ing, what are you thinking about? Ing shook her head, threw away the random thoughts in her mind, and walked to Luo Chen's side. Luo Chen understood, put his arm around Ying's waist, and looked at Wooliangta Himiko. Wooliangta Himiko was not shy at all, and leaned close to Jiang Chen's arms. Wow, what should I do then? Paimeng was dumbfounded when she saw that Luo Chen's arms were already covered with the two women's blood. She asked stupidly, but she still flew over slowly and hugged Luo Chen's neck. Good guy, little Paimeng is really like a little pet. Hu Zhaigong also likes to climb on her neck like a scarf. Luo Chen flew up quickly and left Yuanshao Palace. When Luo Chen brought the three people out of Yuanshao Palace and came to Coral Palace Shinhai was standing in the center of Coral Palace with a sad expression. Behind her were corpses stained with blood, and their heads were placed aside. Also placed aside was the broken evil eye. Seeing Luo Chen and his men, Coral Palace Shinhai hurriedly walked up and said, Lord Luo Chen, the people on the list have been killed. You? Take a look. Luo Chen glanced and nodded, saying with satisfaction, It's better to kill these termites, so as not to harm your Heike Island. This time when I go back, I will ask the magistrates to come and hand over the compensation matters to you. After you have discussed it, the shogunate will station troops on Heike Island. Luo Chen said lightly. I will obey the order of the Lord of Tianyu. Coral Palace Shinhai nodded. She had no other choice. She could only accept it. Chapter 123. Miss Shinhai. Ing stepped forward, handed over the blood branch coral and said, The problem of Yuanshao Palace has been solved by Luo Chen. This is the blood branch coral. Take a look. It's the blood branch coral. Thank you, Miss Ing. Shinhai of Coral Palace said gratefully. You shouldn't thank me. Ing shook her head and said, It was mainly because Luo Chen solved the crisis of Yuanshao Palace, and Sister Jizi solved the monster guarding the blood branch coral. So I had the opportunity to get the blood branch coral. Thank you, Lord Tianyas Hong, and thank you, Ms. Jizi. Shinhai of Coral Palace said sincerely. Well, remember that Heike Island is part of Inazuma in the future, and just live a stable life. Luo Chen said, Don't think too much. The political affairs of Heike Island still belong to your Coral Palace. Management, diplomacy, and all other affairs are still under your control, but I don't allow you to have independent military power. Luo Chen said, Disband the resistance army. I allow you to have your own security brigade, but the army no longer allows it. We understand. Coral Palace Shinhai nodded with difficulty. Military power is not allowed. Alas, Pai Ming, what are your plans next? Luo Chen looked at Ing and asked, the conferred god ceremony is less than a month away. Why don't you continue your journey after the conferred god ceremony is over? 11 Yeah, that's what we plan to do. Pai Ming said, wait until your conferred god ceremony is over before we leave Inazuma. We plan to go around Inazuma before the conferred god ceremony, Ing said. So we won't go to Inazuma City with you first? That's good. Seeing more scenery along the way will help you understand the meaning of travel. Luo Chen nodded and said, then be safe on the road. Okay. Ing nodded and left with Pai Ming in another direction. Luo Chen looked at the two people leaving, flicked his finger, and a space force quietly sank into Ing and Pai Ming's bodies. What is that? Wooliangta Jizi asked curiously. It's just a space force of mine. Ingmong is very powerful. This force can help her block the danger once. I can also feel her position. Luo Chen smiled. You care about her so much, why don't you keep her by your side? Wujingta Himiko smiled. Ing is different. She has her own mission and responsibility. Luo Chen smiled and said, let's go back to Inazuma too? Take you to see them. Okay. Wooliangta Himiko nodded. She was also looking forward to the scenery of a new country. Luo Chen nodded, picked up Wooliangta Himiko and flew into the sky. Coral Palace Shinhai looked at the blood branch coral in his hand for a long time without saying a word. At this time in Liyue, the Liyue 7 Stars were holding a meeting. That was about the conferred god ceremony of Inazuma Tianyu Zongzhuzun. The 6 countries would send delegations to Inazuma. Let's decide who will lead the delegation to Inazuma this time. Ningguang looked at everyone and said, now that the Emperor and the Immortals no longer show up, the highest status in the whole Liyue is their 7 stars, so naturally one of them will lead the team. I'll go, Keqing said without hesitation. She almost missed Luo Chen so much. I think Yu Hengxing can do it. Kaixing nodded. He had heard that Keqing and Luo Chen were friends. I agree. The other 7 stars all nodded. Okay. Ningguang nodded. She looked at Keqing with a slightly ambiguous look and said, I'll go with you this time. The matters that need to be handed over to Inazuma need to be handed over to me. Keqing glared at Ningguang, and she knew that this guy wanted to take this opportunity to get closer to Luo Chen. All right. The other 7 stars nodded. After all, it was the conferred god ceremony. If 2 of the 7 stars went, it would also show their importance. In that case, let's decide. Keqing and I will go. Ningguang nodded and said, that? Ganyu, who was sitting silently on the side, suddenly looked up and asked, I want to go too, can I? Advertisement Ganyu recently felt that she was out of tune with Liyue. After the death of Emperor Yanwang, she felt that her contract with the Emperor and Liyue had, in short, she was very confused and wanted to escape. Now that the Inazuma conferred god ceremony was underway, Ganyu wanted to go and relax and meet the 8th son of God who she hadn't seen for many years. All right, Ganyu can protect our safety. Ningguang nodded and smiled. She saw that Ganyu's mood fluctuated recently, so it was good for her to relax. Next, let's discuss what kind of state gift to prepare for the Tianyu Zongzhuzun. Ningguang asked, does everyone have any ideas? This is not a simple diplomacy. The gift must be valuable. Keqing said, my suggestion is to give a Wuhai Yunjian Zhuanhuan Jindan as the first gift, and then supplement it with other precious gifts. Wuhai Yunjian Zhuanhuan. As soon as Keqing said this, everyone looked at Keqing in astonishment. This is the Jindan passed down by Prince Yan. It is the highest standard treasure of Liyue. There are only 2 in the whole Liyue. It is not wrong to say that it is a national treasure. It is said that a golden elixir can directly give ordinary weapons the power of artifacts. Now that Lord Yan has passed away, this thing is out of stock. Even if Lord Yan is alive, there are only 2 in Liyue's 3,000-year history. Zero Ningguang looked at Keqing. What a prodigal girl. It is too outrageous to give this thing away. However, Ningguang also said, although the transfer of Wuhai Yunjian is a national treasure, it is worth it if it can be exchanged for the favor of a god. Seeing Ningguang said so, the other 7 stars nodded and no longer had any objections. Soon, the Liyue 7 stars formulated the entire plan. They decided to board the ship to Daojin in 2 days. After the meeting, Ningguang and Keqing walked side by side. Keqing looked at Ningguang and said with satisfaction, you understand it very well, Ningguang. Ningguang smiled and said, my thoughts have not changed, but what I said is also true. A golden elixir can be exchanged for Lord Luo Chen's friendship with Liyue, which is really worth it. However, Keqing, I recently obtained some strange ores, and I plan to give them to Lord Luo Chen privately. Ningguang said. Strange gems? Keqing asked curiously. That's it. Ningguang took out a beautiful blue-purple ore from the Eye of God. The ore itself is extremely clear and bright in color. As if there is a light source inside, it presents a clear and beautiful blue-purple color. This color is like the sky at dusk, distant and gorgeous. This ore is called Laosher. It is an extremely rare gem that can only be found occasionally in the abyss of layered rocks. I have checked that in hundreds of years, there have been a total of more than a dozen pieces of this quality, and most of them have been lost. Ningguang said, Please subscribe to all the sirs before you subscribe. Chapter 124. But a few days ago, I bought 8 pieces of top-quality old stones at a very high price. Now, I want to give them to Luo Chen. Ningguang said seriously. Sure. Ningguang is still you. Keqing gave Ningguang a thumbs up and said, What you did? I am moved. A beautiful rich woman pursues you with all her heart. I think if I were a man, I would not be able to resist. If it is really that easy, then I am very happy. Ningguang smiled. By the way, Ningguang, tell me, how much did you spend on these old stones? Keqing asked in a low voice. 1.6 billion mora. Ningguang said calmly. How much more? Keqing was stunned. 1.6 billion? 1.6 billion mora. One piece of old stone costs 200 million mora. It is still priceless. If it were not for my face, 1.6 billion mora would not be able to get 0.50. Ningguang shook her head and said, Iske, you are indeed the richest woman in Teyvat. Keqing always thought that her family was already very rich, but it was still far from Ningguang. Their family would not spend 1.6 billion mora for 8 stones. Besides, even 1.6 billion mora in cash is not easy to take out. Since you are so sincere, then you should think about how to tell Luo Chen. Keqing patted Ningguang on the shoulder and said, I believe you. I'm leaving first. Before going to Inazuma, I have to arrange various affairs. Go. Ningguang nodded. Although she had a lot of things to do, Baiwen and the other 3 sisters could help deal with a lot of non-urgent matters now. Urgent matters can be handed over to the General Affairs Department, which is not difficult. At the same time, the other 5 countries also began to prepare for the affairs of the conferred god ceremony. Fly back to Mingshan Taisha with Wuliangta Jizi quickly. At this moment, only Lei Yingying was practicing martial arts at the Naragami Shrine. General Raiden went to the castle tower. Ye Shinko and Kitsuzai Shige took Linghua and the others to practice the Taihei Kagura dance. Slowly flying into the Naragami Shrine, Luo Chen let go of Himiko Muriota in his arms. Is this the Naragami Shrine you mentioned? It's really beautiful, Himiko Muriota said with emotion. A world without collapse is really beautiful. Yes. Luo Chen nodded and walked in with Himiko Muriota. Lord Luo Chen. Juqi Xing saw Luo Chen coming back with a beautiful red-haired elder sister and hurriedly came to greet him. Xing, she is Himiko Muriota. She will live in Naragami Shrine in the future. You can arrange a room for her later, Luo Chen said with a smile. Okay. Juqi Xing nodded and looked at Wuliangta Himiko and said, Hello, Sister Himiko, my name is Juqi Xing. You can just call me Achen? Achen, hello? Wuliangta Himiko nodded. Luo Chen. Who is she? At this time, a cold voice came from behind the 2 of them. Hearing the familiar voice, Wuliangta Himiko quickly looked back, and looking at the familiar face, she was stunned. Advertisement May? I'm not. My name is Lei Yingying, hello? Lei Yingying shook his head and said, Lei Yingying? Wuliangta Himiko also reacted at this time. Yes, that's right. Although the purple-haired woman in front of her voice and appearance are very similar to Mei, she is definitely not Mei. Mei is very gentle, while the woman in front of her looks a little cold and dull. Moreover, the woman in front of her has a big braid, and Mei never wears such a hairstyle. She always lets her hair down, and sometimes just lightly ties her hair. Ying is not Mei, but the 2 look a little similar. Luo Chen introduced with a smile. She is Lei Yingying, the thunder god of Inazuma. I see, they really look alike. Wuliangta Himiko smiled. After all, Mei before was the Hershers of Thunder. The thunder god of this world is so similar to her. Even the attribute power is the same. Ying, she is Himiko Muriota, a visitor from another world, with great strength, so I brought her back. Luo Chen smiled and said, In the future, she will also be a member of our Inazuma. Lei Dianying nodded and said, In that case, then welcome. After chatting with Himiko Muriota for a few words, Lei Dianying knew the cause and effect of the matter, and continued to go back to practice martial arts. Although she is very similar to Mei, she is more indifferent than Mei. Himiko Murioda said. Indeed, but Ing has a sister named Raiden Shin, who is very gentle. Luo Chen smiled and said, I guess she is also very similar to Mei in character, right? Oh, that's the case? Then they are not the space-time isotopes of Mei and this world. Wooliang to Himiko said in surprise. The technology tree of the collapse world is very high, and Wooliang to Himiko naturally knows the concept of space-time isotopes. Who knows? Luo Chen shrugged and said, If it is true, do I also have a space-time isotope? Wooliang to Himiko said with interest, Oh, if it is true, I really want to see what my space-time isotope in this world is like. In some aspects, the two worlds are indeed similar. Luo Chen stroked his chin and said, The human name of Barbados, the god of wind, is Windy. TSK, my former student, the former Hershers of Wind, was called Windy. What a coincidence, said Wooliang to Jeezy with a smile. A Windy? Luo Chen knew that the most embarrassing Hershers in Honkai Impact 3rd, the poor kid who was beaten up by 3 B-level Valkyries. I didn't expect that we had experienced so much. Wooliang to Jeezy said with emotion. I really hope to see that world again and see Kiana's efforts to make that imperfect story beautiful. Lord Luo Chen, Sister Jeezy, you haven't eaten yet, right? I'll go make it for you. Juqi Xing, who was acting as a quiet listener here, suddenly said. Then thank you for your hard work, Axing. Luo Chen nodded and said. Hee. Juqi Xing smiled and left. TSK, your charm is nowhere to be placed. This little girl seems to have a special feeling for you. Looking at Juqi Xing's back as she left, Wooliang to Himiko asked, Your lover? Not yet. Luo Chen was stunned. Obviously, Achen was so good to him, and he seemed to have always taken Achen's efforts for granted. No matter when he needed to do something, Juqi Xing seemed to be there, helping him wash and dress, serving him a bowl of hot rice, and taking care of his affairs in an orderly manner. Everything was so natural that without Wooliang to Himiko's question, Luo Chen actually forgot that she was not his woman. And Juqi Xing always saw other girls being intimate with Luo Chen, but she never said it, just being good to Luo Chen wholeheartedly. Sometimes even Yashinsi was jealous. The previous Achen was not so. Gentle. Chapter 125. Such a gentle little shrine maiden should be very good to you. Wooliang to Himiko said with a smile. Yes, indeed. Luo Chen nodded. Although it is right for shrine maidens to serve the gods, it is obvious that Juqi Xing is different from other little shrine maidens. Everyone can see her intentions. So how do you decide? Wooliang to Himiko asked with a bright smile. Of course, I can't let my little shrine maiden down, Luo Chen said with a smile. He knew Juqi Xing's intentions. Then you should go and respond to your little shrine maiden. I will go around the Naragami shrine by myself, Wooliang to Himiko said. Okay. Luo Chen nodded and turned to the kitchen. Luo Chen walked into the kitchen. At this moment, Juqi Xing was busy in front of the stove. Juqi Xing's cooking skills were very good. She could always make a lot of delicious food. If it was in the previous life, it might be the ultimate goal of all male compatriots to have a beautiful woman like Juqi Xing who was gentle and managed the family. 04 Luo Chen walked over gently and hugged Juqi Xing's slender waist from behind. Juqi Xing was suddenly hugged. She was shocked and looked back quickly. She found that it was Luo Chen. Lord Luo Chen. Juqi Xing was stunned. She never dared to think that she would be held in Luo Chen's arms. Juqi Xing was really stunned. She didn't even dare to think about this scene. She felt that she could be a witch for the rest of her life and serve Luo Chen. She would be satisfied. Looking at the unbelievable and dazed eyes of the pretty person in his arms, Luo Chen gently held her face with his hands, slowly bent his head, and kissed the beauty in his arms. Juqi Xing slowly turned around, tiptoed and stretched out her hands to hug Luo Chen's neck, responding to Luo Chen enthusiastically. After an unknown amount of time, Juqi Xing suddenly smelled a burnt smell. She opened her warm eyes and turned her head to look at the burnt rice. Oh, Lord Luo Chen, the rice is burnt, Juqi Xing said hurriedly. It's burnt, so be it. Luo Chen didn't care at all. With a wave of his hand, the fire was extinguished directly. Okay, it's extinguished, let's continue. Luo Chen embraced Juqi Xing and continued to kiss her. Sister, I'm here to get something from you. Just as the two were in a heated moment, a crisp voice sounded outside the door, followed by a knock on the door. It's Achen. Juqi Xing opened her eyes, and Luo Chen gently let her go. Advertisement, Lord Luo Chen. Wait for me, Achen is here to see me, Jukixing said gently. Yeah. Luo Chen nodded. Jukixing walked over and opened the door. A girl with green hair stood outside the door. The girl has a delicate face and is 80% similar to Jukixing. Her green hair has some personality, and her amethyst-like eyes are mature and steady. The eye of the thunder element god hangs between her hair. The girl is less gentle than Jukixing, but more calm. Achen, why did you come here in person today? Jukixing asked curiously. His sister seemed to have a natural avoidance of the Narigami shrine. It was rare to see her come here. I was entrusted by someone to pick up some sacred cherry blossoms from the shrine, Jukixinobu said, and then she looked inside and saw Luo Chen. Her face changed slightly. She naturally knew Luo Chen. Master, hello, I am Jukixinobu. Jukixinobu hurriedly introduced herself. I have heard that Achen has a knowledgeable sister. Luo Chen nodded and smiled. Hello, Jukixinobu. Achen, don't call me so restrained. If you can just call me sister. Luo Chen said stupidly. Huh. Jukixing and Jukixinobu were stunned. Jukixing's face turned red all of a sudden. She looked at Luo Chen happily. Luo Chen said this in front of his sister, which meant that he had truly accepted her. Juchi-run was very shocked. Her sister was actually in love with Luo Chen. Juchi-run felt that she was already very good, but she really didn't expect that her sister, such a gentle person, was the best who could make the gods her love zone. Achen, what's that look in your eyes? Looking at her sister's strange eyes, Jukixing was almost embarrassed to death. Although she was very happy that Luo Chen could express his feelings, she was really shy in front of her sister. No. Juchi-run waved her hand and said, Sister, please help me get the sacred cherry blossoms. I won't disturb you and my brother-in-law. Okay, then come with me. Juchi-run nodded and looked at Luo Chen and said, Lord Luo Chen, I will go get the sacred cherry blossoms for Achen. Okay, go ahead. Luo Chen nodded. It was just right that he threw the ingredients into the magic kitchen, and soon he would get a lot of delicious food. On the way, Juchi-run looked at his sister and asked, Sister, you two are lovers. Why do you call your brother-in-law Luo Chen Lord? Today. Just confirmed the relationship today? Jukixing said shyly. Before you came, we just confirmed the relationship and you knocked on the door. I didn't have time to change my words. Oh, Juchi-run stretched out her voice. She looked at her sister with a smirk and asked, Sister, what does it feel like to be in love with the Lord God? I won't tell you. Jukixing blushed when asked by her sister. She glared at Juchi-run and said, Good sister, just tell me. Sister hasn't even been in love for 57, isn't this curiosity? Juchi-run said, holding her sister's hand. Huh, don't you learn and experience every problem you encounter? You can try it yourself and you will know? Jukixing snorted. That's your lover. If I interfere, wouldn't it be? Juchi-run waved his hand and said, Forget it. If you don't want to, just forget it. I really don't understand why you don't like the job of a shrine maiden so much. Jukixing said, Obviously, we are a shrine maiden family, and we are supposed to serve the gods. If you can make Lord Luo Chen like you, then I don't mind. Aren't you too generous? Juchi-run said speechlessly. I don't care so much. Jukixing waved his hand and said, Achen, you are a girl. Why do you always hang out with that Aragaki sect? If you ask me, even if you don't work as a shrine maiden, you should have a stable job, right? Jukixing said seriously. I'm warning you, your relationship with your family is a little bad. You must never have anything extraordinary with those people. Don't worry, I treat them all as family members. Sister, you don't know that although they make people feel that they are not doing their jobs properly, they are really a group of sincere people. Juchi-run said, I have no plans to get married now.
Thanks for watching. You can find the next videos in the playlist linked in the info card, directly on my channel, or right here on the screen. And as always, if you have any feedback, feel free to share it in the comments too.